Oh boy.
There's so many things to... Everyone's confused.
Where are we?
Where are we? And why? And how are you here? What's going on? You left me in LA and then you just couldn't resist coming right back real quick.
Oh my God. Truly. Long story short, I just on Monday decided
No.
Okay. We don't do short story.
Short. We have a podcast, Christy. We don't know what short means. First of all, let's answer everyone's questions. Where the hell are we right now?
Oh my goodness. We are recording for the first time at the beautiful Cast Studios. Look at this background. There's LA. We are in LA.
I live right over there. No, I don't. But just pretend.
Somewhere out there you do.
Somewhere within the 360 degrees of me, I live there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
As do you, just a little further away.
Just a little tiny bit further away.
A little more to the east. But yeah, so we are in like an actual studio and it looks very professional.
We know you're confused.
There's 9 different lights hitting us right now.
We just are kind of here like, okay, great. Someone else knows what they're doing. I think, so Christine and Eva knew that this was happening a lot longer than I did. Yes.
I was surprised with this information yesterday because as you can see, those of you who just tuned in only a couple episodes ago found out that Christine moved away from California and yet she is here.
I can't resist the charm of M.
Well, no one can, really.
Nobody can. That's true.
So who wants to tell their side of the story first of how you're here?
Actually, I think you should just tell how you discovered that I was here.
Okay, so obviously Christine and I did not get to be together for our birthday this year. Basically, what happened is for our birthdays, since we weren't going to be together for many, many reasons, Christine and I decided we were going to do a virtual gift giving extravaganza, sure. And so I was instructed by Christine to send her gifts to her and she would send her gifts to me, and then we would open them up on Zoom or something like that. And I thought that was a great idea and literally never thought anything of it. And I had been sending gifts to Christine for a while and I hadn't gotten any gifts, by the way, on your end. I was like, okay, like, is Christine not sending me presents? Like, what is going on?
I had left them in LA for my brother to bring. That was the original idea.
I didn't know any of that. I just knew that, like, I wasn't getting presents. And in my head, I did think at one point, I was like, Christine is probably doing something really weird for my birthday that isn't physical. So, like, that's probably why I haven't gotten any presents, even though I've shipped many to her. And then eventually we were going to have our gift opening, and Christine said, like, oh, well, I have some presents still in LA, you know, that Zandy's been holding on to. So he's going to hand them over to Eva, and I'll have Eva film you opening them. That way we can show that video, and then I'll film myself opening the video, you know. It was supposed to be this whole video thing. And basically I was told, like, Eva is going to film this, so meet up with Eva. And then I did. And when Eva started rolling the camera, I found all of these presents in the room and one massive present behind all of the presents. And so the tiny presents, I thought, like, okay, well, I'm going to ignore the big present because that's clearly the grand reveal. I'm not going to, like, I'm not going to open that one first and, like, then have to open the tiny one.
To be clear, none of this was my plan. This is all how it went, but this was not my plan.
I opened the tiny presents and I was taking forever.
Yes,
apparently.
Em was hamming it up in front of the camera.
I was like, look, I don't have my buddy here to banter with me, so I have to do double the banter.
You were trying to guess what all the presents meant.
I'm trying to make it interesting and visually appealing to people. So I was taking way too much time, and I noticed Eva was, like, really trying to, like, push me to keep...
She was sweating.
She was acting weird, and I was like, what is your deal? Like, we're just filming me opening presents. And then I got to the big one, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's in it. And so I was kind of, like, trying to shove it around. And I was like, oh, this box is heavy as shit. Like, what the hell did Christine get me? And then 2 seconds later, someone pops out of the goddamn box.
Okay, to be clear, Em started shoving the box and going, holy shit, this is so freaking heavy. Damn, like, trying to tip it over. And I'm inside, like, trying not to fall. And I was like, this is heavy as furniture. And I was like, ouch, first of all. And oh my God, poor Eva is like, oh no.
I saw Eva panicking. And I was like, what is wrong with me?
I was inside. You opened one flap and I was like, ready. And then you closed it and went, actually, I'm going to guess what it is. And I was like, I can't breathe. Open the damn box. The whole idea was that you weren't supposed to open the other presents until I arrived on scene.
And then we
but
could
I
banter together
hadn't
for the
necessarily
rest.
told Eva that. I guess I just kind of thought my brain waves had transitioned to her and they didn't. So that was my fault. So listening, I'm in the box and Eva, I was like, which one should I open first? And Eva's like, any of them. And I'm like, no. And you were like, what's this? I wish Christine were here to explain it to me. And I was like, ripping my hair out. Yeah, it was very comical, but we did film it. It's gonna be on Patreon, I think. It was the whole time Eva just keeps zooming in on me in the box to see if I'm like breathing.
It was very, very sneaky. I mean, first of all, like usually, you know, Eva's just so pure-hearted and like I don't know if I would necessarily consider her like number one stealth,
right?
But she like really like. Both of you, I guess, so you decided you were just going to fly out to LA like 2 days ago.
On Monday. I was like, I'm going to fly out on Wednesday and surprise Em.
And so I had no idea. And they both kept it so quiet. I had no idea what was going on.
Oh my God.
I really had no idea
The
when
number
Eva
of
was
times-
acting so weird. I was like, we're just opening presents,
Oh my
dude.
God. Eva was like sending me like red alert, SOS. And then literally I bought my tickets on Monday and I get a text 2 hours later from Em saying, actually, can we postpone our gift video to like another week? And I was like, actually, like we cannot. So that was really awkward to try and lie. I felt like I was being very pushy, inadvertently trying to
I didn't even notice, and I've said this so many times in the last 24 hours, but I'm just clearly so blindly loyal to anything Christine and Eva have to say.
Why?
There were so many things in hindsight where I'm like, that was a weird sentence. Why didn't I wonder what you meant?
You were like so thrown. You were like, I feel like I'm like off my game. I didn't like
I felt
catch
like
on.
I duped myself because I usually like to think I'm like spot on when people are being tricky like that. Didn't notice a goddamn thing.
Yeah, I was pretty proud that it actually worked. I really didn't think it was going to work. So anyway, I showed up and then we were like, surprise. Also, we're recording in person tomorrow for the first time in like months.
So that's how we're here.
Anyway, so it's all very exciting for us anyway.
But I
don't
haven't
know.
seen you in so long.
I know.
I really have gotten kind of emotional a few times with you in the room and not.
We keep getting like teary-eyed. It's so sad.
I was in the elevator today in my apartment and I was like, oh my God, Christine's here. I was like, oh my God, she's here.
And I am here. I literally sprung out of a large box.
She threw lemons at me from
I
the
was
box,
holding
by the way.
lemons inside the box also.
And like, I don't know. It's just, I told her, I was like, I've always wanted someone to jump out of a box from like across the country for me. It's like the most like romantic thing I can imagine.
It's like the most like YouTube late at night video to like make you teary eyed. But I will say, and then I was like, oh my God, on my bucket list from like middle school onward, it has always said, one of my bucket list items, goal in life, is to jump out of or hide in a box as someone's birthday present. And I was like, I knew you were the one who would appreciate it.
I did. And I told Christine, I was like, you have given me a reason to call all of my hometown best friends and my mother and be like, I have lived out here and had 5 birthdays in California and you have jumped out of no goddamn boxes. And Christine couldn't wait 7 days like from moving out of the state.
My family was like, you just got here. I was like, yeah, see ya.
Anyway, if that's not a friendship. Oh, and then you inadvertently by being here ended up actually getting one of your birthday presents early.
Oh my God. And then Em's like, okay, poor Eva. Oh God, poor Eva. Poor Eva. Let's just say there was a gift Em was hiding in the apartment, like our new, where we are roommates now.
Yes.
In the podcast apartment. And Eva was like, well, there's a gift, like, I know you're going to surprise Em and be in the apartment, but like, there's a gift that is like pretty, in sight and Em doesn't want you to see it. And I was like, oh, just throw a blanket over it. And Eva's like, well, it's pretty big. And I was like, just put it in another room, not knowing like it's literally a large piece of furniture.
It was 8 feet tall, 300 pounds. And Eva is like the size of a popsicle stick.
Yes.
And like had to move this thing. And I had no idea Christine was coming. So I've been hiding it there thinking like, well, I have this whole apartment to myself and Christine will never see it.
I was like, just tell Em that the internet guy had to move it.
So many storylines. And I believed every one of them. But so I was like, okay, well, while you're here and Eva put in all this work to hide this thing, she was probably so mad that she was like, she had her own friends come over to the apartment to help her move this thing.
She had to call people to help her move it. I didn't even know
just for me to show it 5 minutes later.
Oh my God.
So you tell the story.
Basically, I walk in the room, my eyes are closed, and I was like, okay, open your eyes. And I literally suddenly am transported to our childhood favorite, Blue's Clues. You know the one with Steve. And I'm standing there and I'm like, oh my God. And Em's like, it's from Blue's Clues. I'm like, I know, it's the wardrobe, the blue big wardrobe.
Literally the closet from Blue's Clues, which I said in a recent episode, I was like, I found something for your birthday that has absolutely no relation to us or the podcast or anything. Basically, I found this thing. I decided in the middle of the night, I must own it. And now I'm going to spin it in a way where it's a gift for you. So I feel like I'm justified in this purchase.
Em was literally like, I just did this in the middle of the night. The next morning, Allison woke up and I said, we are renting a U-Haul and you're taking the day off work and we're picking this up from Santa Ana. And it's literally it's the one, right?
It's the
from
one
the
which,
set of Blue's Clues.
It's literally the like Steve's like bedroom closet.
I thought Steve, I jokingly was like, is Steve in there? And I was like, well, actually, and I, for like a brief minuscule moment,
You're not the only one who jumps out of things in this apartment.
I really thought Steve was there. He was.
What if it was a little little doll?
Oh, and then Em was like, oh, instead of Blue's Clues, it's Booze Clues, and we're going to put, I thought
stuff.
booze, but I think Em meant
Actually,
booze.
wait, it's a wardrobe. There's multiple shelves.
I'll put wine on one, and then Em can put fan art on
We'll
the
keep
other.
our boxed wine and our spooky haunted fan mail.
Yes. So in any case, it's just like so wild. And Em was like, well, I hope whoever gets his apartment next likes Blue's Clues,
because
we're not taking
moving
that out.
By the way, as we all know, RJ is like the Hulk, and so I literally found this thing in the middle of the night. One of you out there tagged me in this post.
Oh yeah, by the way, they're probably listening like,
yeah, you did it, by the way.
did
You
this.
tagged me, and this is you. You caused this. So some random person posted that they owned this furniture, and they were moving, and they were literally leaving like the next day, and they were like, you have 24 hours to come collect this or it's going on the street. And I was like, well, I don't know why the person tagged me in this, because I've never spoken on Blue's Clues, but they knew I would do something about it. And so I reached out to that person and I was like, is this still available? And she was like, yeah, it's you have to get it tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And so at 1 a.m, I got a U-Haul, because it's literally 8 feet and 300 pounds. And my little Subaru was not equipped for that. And then I woke Allison up and I was like, so I got a U-Haul. It's a long story, but I'm now the owner of Blue's Clues furniture, and I need you to come pick it up. It's a surprise for Christine. Don't tell anyone.
I like how Allison's like, you didn't even need to explain it. I just
She got in that goddamn truck real quick. She was like, I'm in.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
It's amazing.
She asked me at one point, like, why did you do this? And I was like, I don't have an answer. I was like, it was midnight and I was bored.
Oh my God.
So I found it, and now it's ours. And now
it's been a weird 24 hours, I guess. And longer for Em and longer for both of us, I guess.
You have to fly Gio out now so we can take pictures of him in the wardrobe, he could be the new
Ooh.
Blue.
Oh.
I know what I said. Anyway, wow, that was a long, lengthy thing.
I'm sorry, but we never really did a real birthday episode, so this is us talking about our birthdays.
We also haven't seen each other in person, so I'm kind of having school kid crush on you right now. I'm just so excited to be in a room with you.
Em, I really was worried I'd give you an actual aneurysm when I jumped out of that box.
I hugged you tighter than I think I ever have.
Oh my God, I was scared that I hurt you.
I was so excited to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. But anyway, so I'm kind of
even
sorry.
when we were in LA, we didn't see each other. That's it's so crazy. It's been forever.
So sorry for the rambles. I'm just very excited.
We're getting cheesecake after this, so we're just in a very good mood.
Every time we have a business meeting, it's at Cheesecake Factory.
We go to Cheesecake Factory, yeah.
Cheesecake Factory, are you sponsoring
Anytime
us?
we have to leave to do anything outside of our homes, we immediately go to Cheesecake Factory afterward.
Every time.
I don't know why.
Every time. Okay.
All right. Anyway, we're going to actually talk about
Welcome to our show about death and murder.
And ourselves.
Okay, so for the people who like us rambling in the beginning, I'm glad you had a good day today. But for the people who don't like it, I'm so sorry.
You can start listening now.
Right now. I'm glad. Good. I'm glad you skipped.
You missed some great tales, though.
Okay, so my story, I gotta be honest, speaking of rambles, the last several episodes were significantly longer than most of my stories are.
Did a 2.5 hour or 2 hour, or I don't even know how long.
Last week, I think the episode was 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is unheard of for us. And by the way, thank you, cast.
Yeah, sorry.
But it's that was just super long, and so I thought I would relieve you and do just a quicker story this time around, especially because I have fear that I'm not going to stop talking if I find another long story. So keeping it short, a few people have requested this a long time ago, but this has just kind of been sitting in my notes. So finally doing it, and this is the story of the Watseka Wonder.
What's that?
apparently
look around the room like people are. There's nobody here.
Usually when Christine and I are in chairs with microphones, we're on a stage.
I was just thinking, like, why do I feel so weird? It's because no one's like here.
Because we literally have like stage lights on us, and we're in the same kind of chairs that we sit on stage.
So we're expecting some like reaction, like, you know, appreciation of our hilarity, and it's just silent.
Not a one applause. That's fine. So to answer your question, the stress of daily life weighs on us all.
Especially us.
We are the most stressed people on earth. And whether you're an elite athlete
like
me,
us.
or just a regular person like you, trying to get through the day, muscle pain and muscle tension is a real thing.
It's true. I recently moved, as everyone knows, and picking up boxes for 2 days, I could barely get out of bed. And thank God my Theragun arrived to save the day.
Getting off the couch happens like once a week now, thanks to the stay-at-home orders. And when it happens, I am tired afterwards. So Theragun is also very useful for me. Also, just sitting on the couch, by the way, it's a lovely massage.
Yes. Okay. Well, and RJ's obsessed with it, right?
Okay. So it gets used by a lot of people in my apartment for many reasons. For me, I just want to be massaged after a long day of lying down. And RJ, who is literally training for the Olympics,
elite athlete,
uses it for totally different purposes. So, I mean, between all of us, it's being used a lot. And
well, we'll tell you what it is. It's basically a handheld percussive therapy device that releases your deepest muscle tension using a scientifically calibrated combination of depth, speed, and power, and is super duper quiet, like as quiet as an electric toothbrush.
And that's because the all-new Gen 4 Theragun has a proprietary brushless motor that's so quiet you'll wonder if it's even on. And while you soothe your aching muscles with Theragun's signature power, amplitude, and effectiveness, first of all, so I know RJ on his own had a different, much, much older model that he was like borrowing as a loan from his like dad or something. And then this Theragun, like new and improved, came to the apartment. And he could not stop talking about how quiet it was. He was like, I don't even know if it's on.
Texting M like updates.
He's been texting me things to say in case I forgot them. But I've been hearing him from his room being like, it's not like the other one sounded like a drill. And I used to hear it too, by the way. I was like, this sounds like he's doing construction in there. And now this one is so silent. And it feels amazing, especially like on your feet.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you've done it on your feet, but I
mostly have done it on my back. It's so nice, folks. It's really, really, really comforting. And I'm not an athlete, obviously, but it really, really helps when I was really sore.
But we know a good thing when we see it.
Yeah, that's true.
Try Theragun risk-free for 30 days. There's no substitute for the Theragun Gen 4 with an OLED screen, personalized Theragun app, and the quiet and power you need.
Starting at only $199. Go to Theragun.com/drink right now and get your Gen 4 Theragun today.
That's Theragun.com/drink.
Theragun.com/drink. So I recently, I know I keep saying this, but I moved to a new place and
we get it. Okay.
We walked in and I went, oh boy, we don't have any food. What the hell am I going to do? Literally the day after we moved in, my daily harvest box arrived and I was like, I have meals for the whole day, for the whole week. And I just
super useful.
I never get tired of them. Daily Harvest delivers delicious, clean food right to your door, literally. It takes just a few minutes to prepare, and I never have to question if the food's good for you or if it even tastes good because I love them all. Highly recommend.
And everything stays fresh in your freezer until you're ready to enjoy it. You don't have to overthink any of your meals for the week. They have delicious options for any time of day. So they have smoothies, they have soups, they have harvest bowls, flatbreads. And when our Daily Harvest shows up at the apartment, I'm lucky if I get one.
You gotta call them, who gets which one.
We have to label them with a Sharpie because we fight for them like we've never seen food before.
Oh my God, there's this cherry smoothie one.
Yeah. They have a chocolate or a dark cacao, and is it cacao?
I think so.
And mint. It tastes
that's
like
my favorite.
A chocolate mint
and
milkshake.
By the way, pro tip, which I think I learned from another podcast, is if you use chocolate almond milk instead of regular, it just doubles that chocolate. Very good.
And the flatbreads, have you had the?
Yes, okay. I love the flatbreads.
Flatbreads are so freaking good. Daily Harvest never uses preservatives, added sugar, or artificial ingredients, and they work directly with farms, and they freeze organic fruits and vegetables at peak ripeness to lock in nutrients and taste.
Daily Harvest is also committed to minimizing their environmental impact, which is great. They're in the process of transitioning to 100% compostable, recyclable packaging, and they're over 50% of the way there already.
Okay, well,
even better.
That's another reason to love them. Go to dailyharvest.com and enter promo code DRINK to get $25 off your first box.
That's promo code DRINK for $25 off your first box at dailyharvest.com.
Dailyharvest.com. And everyone here.
Everyone who's wondering, yes.
The Watseka Wonder is America's first documented possession.
What?
Yeah. Although...
I'm amazed you hadn't covered this yet.
Me too.
Or that I hadn't heard of it.
Me too, but I'm also... I use possession lightly because this story is a little questionable.
Okay.
It's not as, I guess, scary as other possessions are, because usually when you hear possession, you think like a demon story.
Yes.
This is more of a medium trance story.
Ooh.
So the main character, as we delve in, her name is Mary Lurancy Venom. Lurancy is Lurancy. Lurancy.
Sounds good to me.
Well, apparently her nickname was Rancy.
Rancid Rancy. Gotta love her.
Well, I keep reading her name as Lunacy, and I was like, that's not right.
Oh, that's a more fun nickname. So.
I'm surprised that all the nicknames, like the kids on the playground could have called you. It was Rancy and not something else.
Could have been worse.
Anyway, Mary Lunacy. Nope.
You're the kid. You're the bully on the playground.
That's me, actually. Mary Lurancy Venom. And just to avoid that, again, we're going to call her Rancy for the rest of the show.
God.
So Rancy lived in Watseka, Illinois. Apparently it's not too far from Chicago.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Really? Yeah?
Yes. I knew that name sounded familiar, but...
I have not heard that.
I just know nothing about this story, though.
Well, not Lunacy. Rancy was born April 16th, so Taurus?
April 16th is an Aries.
Aries, okay. That's fine, I guess.
I love an Aries.
My mom's an Aries.
My stepmom's an Aries. Oh, we always say this.
We always say it. Everyone else is like, we know.
We know your entire family tree of astrology.
So Rancy was born in 1864. And at 13, she starts telling her family that she's seeing and hearing people in her room at night.
Good. Fabulous.
I don't like that.
Our future children will be screwed if anything.
If my kid comes to me, especially at 13, like kind of out of the age where like children are seeing
like
things.
Imaginary friend age, yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, we're burning the house down.
Yep. We're calling Christine and we're all getting a caravan.
Call Aunt Christine. She'll pour the boxed wine. I know you're 13. It's okay. We all need it right now. So apparently, this is a quote from Rancy. There were people in my room last night and they kept calling Rancy, Rancy, and I could feel their breath on my face.
Ew.
So that's where I draw the goddamn line.
Yeah.
Breath. So she apparently she kept hearing people calling her name at night and started sleeping in her parents' room. And a week later, I guess she was fixing something with her mom. She was with her mom doing something. And she says, I feel bad. I feel so queer. I can relate to both of those.
Amen.
So Rancy fainted and then seized up.
Oh, shit.
And didn't wake up for 5 hours.
Oh, shit.
And when she came to, said that she felt very strange and had no memory of the hours. Well, obviously she was unconscious, but she couldn't remember anything that had been going on.
What happened? Yeah.
The next day she fell over again and she had rigid limbs, but she was at least conscious enough to be able to tell her family that she was seeing spirits around her.
God.
And she said that she was in heaven. She's talking to them right now. She's like, I'm in heaven.
Oh, no.
And she could see angels, and two of the spirits were her brother and sister who had already passed on.
Oh, shit.
So other times during these spells, Rancy would speak in other voices. And sometimes, I mean, sounds pretty possessed to me, but people like a woman from Tennessee came out and started speaking she started having a southern accent, or she would speak in foreign languages. Like
that's the one that freaks me out.
Foreign languages?
Like foreign languages. Like when it's like, why should a 13-year-old know this?
It's like proof that you are not doing this on your own.
She didn't learn Mandarin.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Maybe.
So she also began talking in her sleep. And not just sleepwalking, sleep running.
Incorrect.
That's the worst.
I'm actually super not a fan
when
of
someone
that.
with dead eyes is sprinting at you.
I stayed at my brother's apartment last night and I was like, Alexander, I need you to lock the door, because he used to sleepwalk so often. And like when we lived in the same house, I had barriers, but now I'm sleeping in his living room, and I was like, I will not abide by any sleepwalking. He goes, I don't sleepwalk. And then he's like, although I guess I wouldn't know since I'm by myself. And I was like, he
should know now more than ever if something's like misplaced the next day, or that could be a ghost.
there's so many possibilities.
Wait a minute. So she began sleep running from the spirits in the house.
Oh, no. That's extremely dangerous.
I don't like that. And so, she could also describe places that she's never been in detail, which is implying like astral projection. But so she was talking about places as if she was there right now.
Wow.
And also her personality started changing while she was in these trances, again, also implying that she was not herself. And although this happened, so this started happening daily, first of all. This started happening like on a constant basis. And by September of that year, it just kind of stopped out of nowhere and she was fine. And then 2 months later, it really came back in stride. So November 27th, 1877, she started having these crazy stomach pains, like apparently doubling over, and they were like 5 to 6 times a day. And apparently the most painful attacks lasted 2 weeks.
Oh, jeez. And
this is a quote, apparently, quote, she would double herself over until her head and her feet actually touched.
Oh.
And what that means is like she just bent over and her head was touching her toes. But in the middle of the night, I thought her head was like,
and I was the other way.
Well, this is a possession story, and I was like, she's everywhere. Like,
meanwhile, I knew fully what it meant, and I still went, "How do you do that?" I know. I can't even touch my toes.
I really went the full like demonic gymnast route, where like. It didn't even cross my mind that like it could just bend over
the normal way that your body actually bends over. Yeah.
I really took a possession in the strongest way possible. So she was in so much pain during this that she nearly passed out, probably from bending backwards.
Right. Her spine snapped in half, probably.
And so she nearly passed out from the pain, but she stayed in a trance. Apparently this was like becoming her way of like meditating when in pain, it seems. But again, she could see heaven and angels and spirits. And her family basically said that these trances lasted like 2 months.
Wow. 2 months?
2 months.
Oh my God.
So now it's like January or February, I guess. And they were claiming that she could see spirits the entire time. And the symptoms of like her seizures and her stomach pains kept persisting. And the family basically was told that they should consider sending her to a mental institution because doctors were not understanding why she could see angels and spirits, and she must be insane. She must lunacy. Maybe there's actually quotes around that, and that's like her. Also, lunacy. I've literally never heard that name before. I wonder what it means. Maybe something relevant. Maybe not.
Probably not, though.
Maybe it means stop reporting on me. So basically the family was told that they should send her somewhere, and their neighbor, I think it was their neighbor or a family friend, but his name was Asa, and he heard about this. His name was Asa Roth. He heard about this and was very against the family doing this. And it sounds like he was more of an acquaintance, so like his opinion really shouldn't have mattered, but he did approach the family and he said, "Don't do it. I had a daughter also named Mary, who also around Mary's age was having very similar symptoms and also like lives near the same property." Whoa. It's all very weird. But so Asa said, "I had a daughter named Mary who had the same symptoms. I sent her away and she ended up not making it." And so I'll tell you that story real quick. Mary Roth was born in 1846. She's a Libra. And at 13, she started having epileptic fits. Her family moved to Watseka. Am I saying it right? Watseka?
I think so.
And she started having crazy symptoms, including nausea, rigid limbs. She was catatonic when she would sleep. And she was having fits like this multiple times a day. She would fall into trances and would act possessed and speak as if she were someone else. And she showed signs of clairvoyance. She apparently at one point developed this obsession with blood.
That's not good.
And started putting leeches on her forehead.
No thanks. On her forehead.
Just like,
oh no.
But she also started hearing voices. So this is where it gets kind of controversial because it's like maybe she really might have been suffering
like a mental illness
from some mental illness. And so
I see. A lot of these possession stories seem to be kind of
On
walking a line, sort of, or at least like you could see it both.
You can at least argue it,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, basically, by 1865, she had been hearing so many voices, and she'd become so obsessed with, apparently, blood and harming herself that she died by suicide.
Oh no!
Apparently, she originally attempted suicide. So this is where it gets supernatural again. Is she attempted suicide, but she only passed out. She had slit her wrists, and I don't know if she slit her wrist or she like cut her arm really badly, but it was with the intent of hurting herself. And when she came to, she had this like crazy superhuman strength, and like 5 grown men at the hospital had to hold her down from fighting them off. And keep in mind, she was like less than 100 pounds and had lost a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty interesting. Also, she had bandages on her eyes because apparently they were afraid of her like scratching her eyes while she was asleep. Or I don't really understand what she had done before to make them worry about that. But so she had these bandages on her eyes, and one of the other weird skills she had was she was able to see through them. She had like X-ray vision.
Yeah.
And so like, and they
like
were
me in that box, like watching you with my lemons.
You could see it clearly, and I didn't see it coming. But so she could see right through her bandages, and it became kind of this party trick that would like intentionally blindfold her as like carefully as possible.
That's
and she could
really weird.
And she could read letters. Like you could just hold a letter to her and she'd read it. They would show her like contents of an envelope she'd never seen before, and she could see right through it.
What?
It was so between that and her like weird superhuman strength,
There's something
was going on, or at least it seems that way. Her father agreed that like no matter what it was, he couldn't control it. He was like, okay, we really probably should put her away just because like,
well, if she's harming herself too, it's like,
true.
That's dangerous.
Very good point. So they ended up putting her away in the state asylum, and unfortunately at 19 she actually did die by suicide. And after that, her parents became spiritualists trying to, get in touch with her. So with that story in mind, Ace was like, please don't send...
that was a totally different story.
So he was basically retelling this to Rancey's parents, being like, I lost my kid because I put her away. Or at least that's what, his belief on it. And so he said, at the very least, before you put her away, like, talk to Dr. Stevens. He's like very well equipped with this. He's also a spiritualist, so he'll pay attention to those signs. And he basically said, like, she's not insane, she's just a medium.
Oh.
And so
that's comforting, I guess.
Yeah.
It's better
right. So Dr. Stevens decided to meet with her, or Asa, I guess, coordinated them meeting up, and Dr. Stevens was able to mesmerize her.
Oh.
I don't
like with a pocket watch?
I guess I don't know if that's different than hypnotism.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I thought mesmerized is what you are. I didn't know you could be mesmerized. Wait a minute. I need to go to sleep.
No, but I know what you mean. Like,
I've never heard like
as an action to do to somebody else.
I've never heard like I'm mesmerizing you.
Yes,
I've heard
exactly.
like I am being mesmerized.
Like in the passive. You. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
So
then again, we don't know words very well, so
English is not your first language, and not mine when I'm a little sleepy.
You can have it. You can have that.
Not mine without cheesecake. We'll talk. We'll regroup later.
We'll send an update at Cheesecake Factory.
So Dr. Stevens apparently mesmerized her, maybe hypnotized her. I will find out before I get a million tweets. I will figure this out. Just to see like what spirits Rancey was living with or dealing with, and pretty immediately saw signs in Rancey that when she was in these trances, she was turning into other people. For example, she was turning into an old hag. Those actual words, not mine. Sitting like an old hag, and she was asking weird questions, and she kept calling her parents Old Black Dick and Old Granny.
What?
So if that's not what you call your parents, maybe you're not mesmerized. I don't know.
Maybe that's what mesmerizing does. I don't think I want to be a part of it, to be quite honest with you.
But so apparently this persona, what she said, he asked, who are you? And she said her name was Katrina Hogan. She was a 63-year-old German woman.
Okay.
But then she very quickly changed personalities again to a man named Willie Canning, who asked Dr. Stevens if he liked smoking and drinking. We don't know what his answers were, by the way.
I think we know what his answer.
I think we know.
Let's be real.
But like, I mean, also, just to be clear, like, I am aware that this also sounds like another mental illness situation because, you know, it could be multiple personalities or something like that. I don't know if I'm using the right words.
Dissociative identity
DID,
disorder?
is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. It could be that. It could be something spiritual, but a lot of critics today say, no, she was actually having some mental illness.
Sure.
And so basically after the session, Dr. Stevens said that his report was that Rancy would go from morose and sullen to mystic and imaginary. Sounds like me on a nice depressive day.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So after the session, he wrote that report, and he also told Rancy, like, hey, since as a believer in spirits, he's like, maybe instead of focusing on negative spirits stepping forward, maybe the ones that are positive, you know, try to work more with those, or like if you can't avoid them, at least try to get closer to the ones that are positive.
That's interesting.
And Rancy and Asa was in the room for this because I guess he like wanted to see what Dr. Stevens had to say. Keep in mind, this is like a neighbor or an acquaintance or something. Like, he's just
like a nosy ass neighbor
infiltrating. He's the most nosy neighbor.
Like, truly.
He's just putting himself in this situation. But he wanted to hear what Dr. Stevens had to say. And in front of Asa, Rancy said, well, one nice spirit has kept showing up. Her name's Mary Roth, which was Asa's daughter.
Whoa, Goose Cam.
And
whoa.
So Asa freaked out.
Sure.
And apparently Dr. Stevens was like, well, what does Mary say when she's stepping forward? And Rancy was like, Mary wants to switch places with me temporarily. And Asa told her to let it happen. Asa was like, well, if that's my daughter talking, you should go to heaven or something and let my daughter take
step out of your physical form and let my daughter come
your corn husk.
Leave your husk behind.
Leave your husk behind. Let my daughter enter the vessel. So,
man, we never made merch of that. We should do that. Someone made that little picture. Remember, it was two ghosts and it said leaving our husks behind. And it had like a sunset.
Also, if someone could like make corn husk dolls of us, that'd be great.
Oh geez.
But not like ones that could like maybe harm us or like a spiritual.
With no bad intentions, please.
Send me corn. I just want corn, actually.
Send me like corn chips, maybe. That would be excellent.
So basically Asa is like heard opportunity knocking at the door and was like,
this mofo had an ulterior motive this whole time.
It's like, if you really think that Mary wants to switch places with you and it might be helpful, you know, for your spiritual journey.
Good for you. Like, this sounds really healthy for you.
Exactly. So with this agenda of his, kind of convinced Rancy that this was okay to do. And so Rancy allowed Mary to possess her. So instantly her personality changed to Mary's, at least according to Asa. And she did not recognize her own family. So the Venoms, who were her mom and dad.
So she didn't recognize like
Rancy didn't recognize her own family, being like, who are you? I'm Mary. Like, that's my dad over there.
But she recognized Asa. Oh my God.
Also recognized everything pretty much about the Roth family. So very quickly was showing obvious signs. And keep in mind, again, like, this was an acquaintance, so like she couldn't have really known too much about the Roth family. But when asked, Rancy said, so they asked, like, oh, where's Rancy right now? If you're Mary, where's Rancy?
Where did she go?
How far did we push this? And Mary, in Rancy's body, said, Lurency is away being treated and will come back when she is restored to health, both mentally and physically. And when Lurency is ready to return, Mary will leave.
That's like what the Grinch said when he took that Christmas tree from that Cindy Lou Who. He's like, I'm just going to fix this up real quick.
It'll be right back.
I promise
it's going to the doctor.
It's
like when your puppy goes to the farm.
But
so basically it sounded like Rancy was in heaven, like on sabbatical or something. And was currently being cured for her seizures and her stomach pains.
Oh, I see.
It was kind of, if Mary Roth was really speaking through Rancy, Mary was saying she's slowly getting sicker and weaker, and so we are going to switch places for a while so I can see my family while she is in the spiritual world.
Very convenient.
It's like a nice little transfer of goods.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Next time I have a stomach pain, it's like, I don't mind going to like the pearly gates.
It's like, I'll take over for a few days.
Like, as long as we're not permanent here, like, I'm good.
You can leave your husk behind for a few minutes.
So basically, like, Rancy will be back shortly. Like, after these messages or whatever. So both families were convinced that this really was Mary. She knew too much about the family, and she barely recognized the Varums. The Varums like didn't know this personality that was coming out of her. She knew Mary Roth's nickname for her sister and her neighbors. She also knew very intimate friends and family and knew very intimate memories of them. She knew about old objects in the house. So she basically went to the Roth house and was like, oh, this is from when I was this age and I looked like this and this is what I did. Very like past lifey.
Yes, yeah.
And so she knew detailed stories about everyone in the family. She talked about her own death and funeral, saying she was there.
Wild.
She talked about when she cut her arm. And she pointed at the arm she currently had, which was Rancy's arm, and said, this is not the arm, though. That one is in the ground.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yikes. What if I told you you could get high-quality organic and non-GMO groceries delivered to your door for a lot less than you're paying now and help out families in need?
I would say I beat you to it because I love Thrive Market. That's what Em and I have both been doing since we discovered Thrive Market. And as proud Thrive Market members, we get the products we love. And our paid membership provides a free one for someone in need. So they give a free membership to someone who really could use it, like a low-income family, teacher, veteran, first responder, that kind of thing, which is just... it makes you feel even better about using it.
Makes you feel warm and good.
And fuzzy.
The best kind. And Thrive Market tailors to over 70 different diets and values like paleo or keto, or if you're plant-based, and deliver the highest quality organic and non-GMO food. They also offer clean beauty and bath products, pet staples, and non-toxic cleaning products, plus ethical meat, sustainable seafood, clean wine, and more.
Oh, trust me. They literally deliver, like ship like clean organic wine to your door, and I get Gio and Junie's pet food also from Thrive.
So
and my shampoo,
and children get their food,
and my shampoo, and my snacks. It's like I literally just buy everything there now. It's so nice, and it comes right away in this big box, and listen, and it's doing some good for the world.
And it's helping save the world. So, I mean, I dare you to find a reason why you shouldn't use this. Try Thrive Market and become a member risk-free. Go to thrivemarket.com/drink.
Join today and you'll get up to $20 in shopping credit toward your first order. That's THRIVE market.com/drink to start your risk-free membership and get up to $20 toward your first order.
thrivemarket.com/drink. She also begged to stay with the Roth family since she was Mary and not Rancy. She was like, I want to go live with my real family.
Can you imagine though being like, wait, no.
I'd be
parents, like we didn't agree to this.
Like, how did this happen?
Yeah,
like,
hold on a second.
You were having stomach aches and now you're also
moving in with a neighbor.
You're moving in like across the street. So I guess apparently like when she was staying with Rancy's family were like so sick of like this weird persona that they were like, if it's gonna like do you some like good, go over there.
We're so tired.
It literally like, please, like if this is like, we don't know what's going on. If this really is a spirit, then you should be over there with your family. If you're our kid and just like pulling one up on us, like we're so over it.
Like,
please go away. But so she begged to stay with the Roth family, and she did. And so Mary possessed Rancy's body for like 4 months.
What?
Yeah.
The fuck?
16 weeks.
Holy crap.
Some other website said 100 days, which is a little too perfect. But
100 days.
And on the 100th day.
Yeah, it's very biblical.
But so she not only possessed Rancy's body, but Rancy lived with the Roth family for 4 months. So imagine having the random neighbor across the street living with you for a month, pretending, or maybe actually being like your dead relative.
This sounds like one of those like a crime movie where he's like, "You're my daughter now," and it's like a different child, but he's like adopting her as his own. This is creepy.
Absolutely not. So apparently, when she got to the house, she even saw trinkets of hers, recalled stories, played her favorite song on the piano, which apparently Rancy didn't know how to play the piano.
That's weird.
She told stories about trips that they had gone on in incredible detail. About, I guess, Asa asked about a trip to Texas one time, and she said, "Yes, Pa, I remember crossing Red River and Mrs. Reeder's girls who were in our company."
Ooh.
I don't know what's creepier, like that she knew that, or the fancy talking back in the day.
Definitely the fancy talking.
Who were in our company. She also remembered friends by their maiden names because when she died, a lot of them hadn't been married yet.
Oh, weird.
She has, this is a quote from her parents, from Mary's parents. She has been nothing but Mary since she has been here and knows nothing but what Mary knew. And she still did not recognize Rancey's parents and believed that she was living at home with her actual family. She did also have some spiritual gifts. So she presented some signs of clairvoyance. Apparently her brother got sick at one point, or hadn't gotten sick yet, but she was like, you need to take him to a doctor.
Oh, shit.
And then he got really sick and would have died if he didn't know about having to get medical attention early enough. So, sounds creepy to me. She could have also been guessing, been like,
he's not looking well.
She also would still go into trances, and many spiritualists actually invited Rancey/Mary to their seances so they could ask questions about death. Which also, like, I'm not surprised. Like, if you had someone walking around claiming that they were actually dead,
I'm back, right?
Like, I gotta know some things. Like, what's going on?
Truly.
And during one of the seances, apparently Mary actually left Rancey's body only for a second to possess another person in the room.
Okay, now she's gone a little far with this whole possession thing.
Just like club hopping. You know how it is.
Oh, yeah, this definitely sounds like a clubbing atmosphere.
A seance club. You tell me how we would not want to be on first of the list there.
TM.
Wait a minute.
Strobe lights.
If we ever do a pop-up, it's got to be a seance club.
A seance club.
Wait a minute.
Okay, I'm into it. Seance nightclub.
I'll eat bagel bites and lemons. Okay, wait a minute. I got to slow down.
I'm really into it.
We'll jump out of the Blue's Clues wardrobe. Hang on. So this is ironic, the fact that that's ironic. What is ironic is that although Rancey's body throughout all this, because remember she was sick and apparently her spirit is being healed elsewhere, Rancey's body is actually improving.
Oh.
So it's almost like there really is like an angel inside of this body healing it. It's very weird, but like all of a sudden there's no more seizures, no more stomach aches, and this is something that had been going on for an entire year.
Bending backwards.
No bending backwards in either direction. No more sleep sprinting.
Oh god.
But so it seems like Rancey's actually healing. But what's the ironic part is that Mary Roth, or the spirit inside of her, refused to eat because she said that she got her, quote, nourishment from above.
Oh dear no.
I don't know about that.
No.
So she like wouldn't eat. Apparently near the end she started eating. Maybe like she was like, okay, Rancey's body needs food.
Yeah.
But it was weird that she's like malnourished but also gaining health. So
weird.
Apparently Mary was also really affectionate to the Roth family. She would give them lots of hugs and kisses. What's weird to me is that they questioned this. They were like, why are you giving us so many hugs and kisses? Which, like, if you genuinely think this is like your dead daughter.
Yeah.
When you like,
maybe she wasn't very affectionate before.
Maybe she wasn't. Or maybe they were like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah,
like,
they're like, this child is literally
went from 0 to 60. So apparently at one point, Mary told her mom, or Mary in Rancey's body told Mary's mom, quote, "The angels will let me stay until sometime in May." And so she said that Rancey was getting better and wanting to return soon. So on May 7th, Rancey came through again. Rancey peeked into her body real quick just to say, hey.
Back.
And then she even was like, I guess she realized that like she needed more time up there, or Mary needed more time down here. And so she was like, I'll give you 2 more weeks.
What?
So she got an extension on this rental.
An extension.
And
oh my God.
By May 21st, so exactly 2 weeks later, Asa wrote to Dr. Stevens, and this is a quote from his note to him. "Mary is to leave the body of Rancey today about 11 o'clock, so she says." Like they're on a fucking schedule.
What the fuck?
"She is bidding neighbors and friends goodbye. She tells me to write to Dr. Stevens as follows. Tell him I'm going to heaven and Rancey is coming home well. She says she will see your dear children in spirit life, and she talked most lovingly about the separation to take place, and most beautiful was her talk about heaven and her home."
Whoa.
So at least she like gave credit to a doctor down here before she like flew back up. She was like, you did this.
She's like,
thank you.
Props to you, my friend.
Everyone's going back where they need to.
These husks are staying here.
Which these husks are here to stay. So like
that's even better.
I wonder, like, you would think at that point, like, if this story is being taken seriously by spiritualists, wouldn't Dr. Stevens have become like this massive superstar of like he
like facilitated this whole thing?
Yeah, he like got a ghost and a human to swap spots.
You'd think so.
maybe I'm just like, maybe this is a total like blind spot on my end and I've never actually heard of him and he's a big deal, but
I don't know about him.
Well, anyway, punctual as ever, at 11 o'clock, Rancy came back into her body and no longer recognized the Roth family as more than just acquaintances and asked to go home to be with her family, the Venoms. And according to Rancy's mother, when she came home, is very weird, Rancy's mom said that Rancy was now smarter, more industrious, more womanly, and more polite than ever.
And could play the piano. Incredible, really.
I almost said, can play it like a fiddle. Can play that piano like a fiddle. But so...
More womanly, that's interesting.
Apparently when you get to heaven, you become more womanly and polite.
Great.
Not where I want to go.
No, no thanks.
So her health apparently was top notch and she no longer ever suffered from seizures or stomach pains again.
Wow.
She ended up marrying soon after. She has like a dozen fucking kids and lived in Kansas.
Whoa.
And she would actually sometimes go back to the Roth's house just so like during seances maybe Mary could show up, like she could like use her body as a vessel for Mary since they'd gone on so well together.
Oh wow.
But so she would every now and then allow basically like guest appearances from Mary at a seance. Other than that, there was no possessions or anything like that, although there was talk of during Rancy's pregnancies when she was about to give birth and she was in labor. Apparently she would revert back into those like trances that she had when she was in pain.
No.
And apparently she would start acting like Mary.
Oh, well, that would make sense if it's while she's in pain.
If it's while she's in pain and she learned to like be mesmerized during her like bouts of pain. And if Mary was already always watching out for her to like heal her, then while she was going through labor, apparently like Mary took the load. She was like, I got you, don't worry.
Oh my goodness.
Don't we
That's a
all?
true friend though. Like, here, I'll step in.
Listen, I see your labor and I'll raise you 10 contractions on my end.
And then she had 12 kids and Mary was like, okay, I didn't agree to 12 of these.
That's probably why she had a dozen. She was like, my friend Mary's got it, don't worry.
It's true. She's like, it's actually pretty easy if you have a friend to take over for you.
So the Roth family never stopped believing in the spirit of Mary, and they credit Dr. Stevens for everything that happened and curing Rancy. But in 1952, Rancy lived in Los Angeles, and at 88 years old, she died. In 1879, back when this happened, Dr. Stevens actually wrote a book called The Watseka Wonder, which is he's the one that coined the term, I guess. And he called Rancy, quote, the most remarkable case of spirit return and manifestation ever recorded in history, which in 1879 probably was the most wonderful thing in the whole wide world.
Probably.
In 1890, so about 10 years later, a member of the American Society of Psychical Research said, because anyway, he was quoted saying, I have no doubt that the incidents occurred substantially described in the narrative by Dr. Stevens. So they like agreed also that this was real. But in 1903, a psychologist named Frank Hoffman said that this was just a, quote, typical case of hysterical impersonation. More recent theories are that, there was some multiple personalities or DID going on.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that it probably was just a case of mental illness or maybe even acting up, like truly just pretending, like maybe just like as a 13-year-old had some teen angst and didn't want to be in her house.
What's her name with the mongoose where she was bored?
Yeah. They think as a teenager, maybe she was bored and she just wanted to go live with the neighbor for a while. There's also...
Maybe he had like better popsicles or a pool or something.
Not the popsicles or the pool, but the main theory is that the Roth family had a couple sons her age and she literally pulled the ultra scheme to just be the room with like just wanted to be around these cute boys, and so she pretended that she was a ghost,
that she was
their sister.
Their dead sister. Whoa. Okay, listen, that's
she like definitely
hilarious.
went above and beyond for the sake of like fulfilling this like this desire of like getting close to the boys, but she also like really shot herself in the foot by thinking like, if I impersonate your sister,
exactly.
I have a chance.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're not going to be, I mean, I hope not super
too close to the sun, that one.
Little tiny bit.
But so anyway, many people theorize that this was literally just a giant teenager scam to get close to boys.
If it is, like,
Well
brava,
done.
brava.
Nice to know that in the 1870s this shit was
Nothing
happening.
has changed.
No, imagine if she had like a Tumblr or a Zanga.
Oh my God. The angst, though. I would feel the angst radiating.
She would love Fall Out Boy.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, there have been 2 movie adaptations of this. In 1996, there was a Lifetime movie called Buried Secrets. And in 2009, the Syfy Network has a movie called The Possessed that came out. Apparently, as of recent years, a man named John Whitman has been restoring the Roth house. And apparently him and some of the previous owners have also, they've experienced some things they just can't explain in that house, including voices, strange recordings. People have conducted seances there, so they think it could just be residual from that. But apparently in the town of Watseka, it is an urban legend now that it is a demonic haunted house, and it's kind of customary for teenagers to like try to like knock on the door and like, you know, wander around there.
Ooh.
Anyway, that's the Watseka Wonder.
I had never heard of that in my whole darn life.
Me either, my whole darn life. Or in my whole darn afterlife. Or in Mary's afterlife.
Or in any husk I've ever inhabited. None of them.
Not a one of them.
Well, thank you. That was very entertaining. Now, I have a story.
Now I'm ready to be bummed out.
Yeah. Now, sorry that you were having a good time, because you're no longer going to be. Okay.
Let me wetten my whistle before I throw some commentary on you.
Did you say wetten your whistle?
Yeah. Is that another thing?
Wet your whistle?
Wetten? Oh, I hear what you're saying. Just like the last episode with Anonymous, I got bare minimum sleep last night. So things coming out of my mouth are not things I'll remember before the cheesecake.
Great. Well, you try to make sure I'm explaining this well, because it's really a lot. It's
my whole. I'm going to focus all my energy on this.
And then there will be cheesecake. I'll dangle that in front of you.
You don't think that's not the reward here? Like, come on now.
Okay. Today I'm covering the death of Kendrick Johnson.
Okay.
And this is an extremely controversial case, which is why I'm very nervous about covering this one, just because I want to do it justice, and because there are so many different takes that people have had. I'll just list the podcasts I've listened to this story on. Crime Junkie, Morbid, My Favorite Murder, and True Crime Garage. All of them covered this. All had a different take, like slightly different or extremely different.
Christine, by the way, like the whole way here, because now that she's here, we can like sit in a car together.
Carpool.
And but the whole way here and yesterday when you surprised me, the whole time has been like, I'm so nervous.
I have a stomach ache over it. I'm like so nervous because it's such a like important case, and I don't want to drop the ball.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
I think we can trust your research skills here, but
I hope
just so you know, we're not taking this lightly. She has made it very clear to me that like this is a little nerve-wracking as a presenter of research.
Yeah, just because, it's really, I can't really land on where I stand exactly. Okay. And people have
Is that common? A lot of people don't know.
There are just two sides that are like extremely, like there are strong cases for both sides, whether this was a tragic accident or a homicide.
Okay.
And people have very strong opinions about it. So I think me being kind of in the middle, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm like,
you don't want people to be mad that you aren't swayed
on one or
way.
the other.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also feel like being on one side or the other would have the same effect.
I mean, you can't win.
Yeah.
That's just what sucks about this, but
that's okay. I'm not used to winning. Don't worry. So anyway, this is the death of Kendrick Johnson. And the reason I'm covering this now is I've known about it for a long time, but this has kind of come into back into the media sphere because, because of all of the demonstrations and Black Lives Matter that's been going on. This case kind of has come back to light. It's being reinvestigated. I don't know if it's being reinvestigated, but it's being looked at again.
Okay.
And so a lot of people have been, tons of people have been requesting this. So here goes nothing. Okay. January 10th. So this takes place in 2013.
Okay.
In a place called Valdosta, Georgia.
Okay.
And it's in a county called Lowndes County. Now, I went and looked up Lowndes County. I just typed it in on Google, and I'm just going to read to you the first headlines that came up. So
Okay.
I just want to give you a little backdrop for what happened when I Googled the town. So the top headline said, "Perfect storm for when COVID hits. Neglected Black communities in Alabama and Georgia see coronavirus surge." And Loudoun County was among 19 historically Black counties with rates of COVID-19 that were 3 times higher than average. And according to NBC News, this has caused obviously high unemployment rates, poverty, lack of access to basic things like medicine and even sewage and like that kind of thing. And it has all been exacerbated by the pandemic. So in that area right now, it's obviously things are not looking good.
Sure. Okay.
And then on the other side, you know how we had that pandemic, then we all forgot about it and went on to the new pandemic, arguably. Now this one, the second headline was basically an extremely blatantly racist remark made by the Lowndes County Supervisor Harry Sanders, who this Tuesday, so like 2 days ago, said after a 3-2 vote, so there was a 3-2 vote to relocate a Confederate statue to the local cemetery, and it failed. So 3 people, they outvoted the people who wanted to move this statue. And he told the Commercial Dispatch that I'm just relaying the news here, folks. This is what he said. Black people are dependent on society because they were taken care of during slavery. He said, quote, "In my opinion, they were slaves, and because of that, they didn't have to go out and earn any money. They didn't have to do anything. Whoever owned them took care of them, fed them, clothed them, worked them. They became dependent, and that dependency is still there. The Democrats right here who depend on the black vote to get elected, they make them dependent on them."
Holy
That was literally
shit.
this week's
48
news.
hours ago, someone said that with their fucking chest?
And here we are, just living life. Yep.
Okay.
And so that was this county. I'm just trying to give a background.
I'm sorry, I'm like nervous.
I know.
Like about to nervous laugh
This
because
is why I'm so overwhelmed by the story.
It's impossible for me to believe that someone actually thinks that's okay to say publicly, let alone think it privately.
I'm not shocked that someone thinks it's okay to say that.
It just blows my mind that there are people out there who...
It just hurts every time. Like it doesn't... It just is.
Wow. Okay.
So those are the two...
Starting real fucking strong.
Literally this week, the 2 big headlines. And I just want to say that to give like a background because a lot of people were trying to explain the area and stuff and the history of the area. But I feel like
who said that?
The Lowndes County Supervisor, Harry Sanders.
Okay. Wow.
So if you know him, give him a piece of our mind.
If you know him, please stop being friends with him.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that was from the Clarion Ledger, just to give credit there.
Wow.
So that's a little backdrop. Fun fact.
Swept me off my goddamn feet.
Whoops.
Okay. I'm awake now, by the way.
Okay, by the way, good morning. And it's just going to get worse. Okay.
Great.
So January 10th in Valdosta, Lowndes County, Georgia, 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson, also known as KJ, he leaves his Lowndes County high school class at 1:25 p.m. when the bell rang. This is like a little mini timeline to start off the story. He's seen by various students and security footage heading towards the old gym. So this high school has like an old gym and a new gym.
Sure.
And both are used for different purposes. He's heading to the old gym. And a video timestamped at 1:27 shows Kendrick entering the hallway to the old gym. And a minute later, he enters the gym and he proceeds out of the security camera's view.
Oh, I think I saw this.
Really?
Has this been trending on Twitter, this video?
Correct.
Okay, I saw the video and didn't know what was going on.
Okay, well,
Okay,
the video
now-
actually becomes like a main point of contention also. So
Okay.
that's interesting.
I was swiping in like the middle of the night and I saw like a gym okay, this is really fucked up, but I saw like a random gym video and I was like, oh, it's probably like a basketball.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a basketball court, right?
Yeah, it's just like an old school gym.
I just thought it was like some like random like athlete video and I skimmed past it. Wow, I'm an asshole.
No, I mean, it's
go
just,
educate
we're
myself.
very overloaded these days on like the news stories. And
It just looked so different than all the demonstrations, so I like didn't even look at the video.
yeah,
but
it's most likely that's what this is.
I see. Okay.
It was
I will
like a
go-
capture of him. Well, I'll tell you all you need to know. Don't you worry, my friend.
Excellent,
I'll
excellent.
revert back to that Twitter and
I see. Okay.
tell you the whole story.
But finally, I kind of know what you're talking. Like, I know a story.
Like
that-
you have a context for
Yes.
it. Yeah, it's definitely been huge on Twitter, and that's actually part of the reason that it's kind of back in the limelight, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
So, he's caught on camera, and that's kind of the last time he's noticed on any security camera. A few minutes later, 3 students enter the old gym and they head in the opposite direction. And at 1:45, so he had left his class at 1:25. At 1:45, he is noted as absent from his weight training class. And at 4:30, the basketball team is in the old gym. They have a full practice. Everything goes as normal. However, Kendrick does not arrive home that night. He was supposed to go to the basketball game and come home afterward. And his mom, Jacqueline or Jackie, and his dad, Kenneth Johnson, are like, something's wrong. And when they first talked to authorities, they're like, well, you know, he's a teenager. Like, he might, after the basketball game, maybe he went out with a friend. And so, you know, that's a very typical response because most of the time that is what happened. Like, a teenager just doesn't call home or whatever.
I mean, I've done it.
Yeah,
times.
exactly. Oh my God, yeah. We've done this. I will say this story really did remind me of some of the stupid shit I did. Like, not even that dumb, but just like, not intentionally dumb even, but just like, oh God, like, I'm very lucky that things...
There's so many times I've thought about like, and this obviously has nothing to do with this particular story,
Right.
but there are so many times that like, you know, in high school, I never necessarily snuck out, but like I definitely like didn't go where I said I was
just like
going.
disregard. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and I was just so lucky in like that I thought like, oh, what could happen? And then like,
exactly. And that's why this case brings that up too, because you're like, people are like, well, that wouldn't happen. It's like, that, like, teenagers do dumb shit, whether they're doing it on purpose or not.
I did so many dumb things.
Me too. And not even like bad. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I was using drugs. It was like, oh, I like walked alone to the CVS to buy candy at 2 a.m. Like, not the smartest move, but in my head I was like, what could possibly
I'm getting
happen?
candy. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So just things like that where you're like, oh God, like the number of times things could have gone wrong and thankfully didn't.
Truly.
We're going to be really anxious parents someday, I think.
I was
On the
raised
ghost
by
side.
Linda. It's already happening with Allison. Every time she's not near me, I'm like, where are you?
Meanwhile, you're like, where's Christine? And I'm literally in a box, like at your feet.
I need to start like divvying up my priorities instead of them all focused on like 1 or 2 people. Right now it's Allison and my mom. I'm like, where are you? And with you, it's like, she could be on the goddamn moon.
Who the hell knows? I could be anywhere.
She could literally be in a box that I'm currently kicking and calling heavy as shit.
Box. This is heavy as furniture, Em says. I wish there was a camera
A
in
small
there.
stool is still furniture, Christine. That's how heavy you are.
I wish you were
A
like
trash bin.
You were like, Eva, did you carry this? Like, did you have to help Alexander carry this into the apartment? She's like, yes. We had 2 people carry
She was
it.
so close to not having to lie anymore. She was like, whatever
She's
it
like,
takes
just
to get
open
you
the goddamn lid. That's what I was thinking too, by the way. Anyway, so Jackie and Kenneth talk to authorities and they're like, well, you know, he's probably just out. And they're like, no, this isn't like him. He would have told us if he was going out with a friend. And the next morning, Jackie goes to Lowndes High School and he still has not returned home overnight. So she's like, something's clearly wrong now. And so that's on the 11th. She goes to the high school. She reports her son is missing to the staff, and one of the staff members starts helping her print flyers. They're like, we need to get his face out there and like get the message out. So this is basically the beginning of when this case starts to be like woefully mishandled to the point that it's just like infuriating.
Just total negligence.
Just like a lot of like, come on, you know, this just wasn't handled properly. So first someone comes rushing in and KJ's mom is doing these flyers with a staff member and someone else comes rushing in and she, who's not supposed to hear this, hears the person say, a body was just found in the gym and the school's on lockdown. And so of course Jackie, like her heart sinks, you know, into her stomach probably. And she's like, oh my God, that must be my son. Like he's missing. And they found a body in the gym. So what had happened is 10:30 a.m. So that was a little more than 21 hours after Kendrick was last seen entering the gym. 2 students. So they had, you know, wrestling mats, those really thick ones.
Yeah.
So they had these wrestling mats that were usually horizontal, and they had just had winter break. And over winter break, the school had like cleaned up the gym and had put the mats upright, so like vertical. Now they were stored in a corner, and they're about 6 feet tall when they're vertical and rolled up, and they have a 14-inch like diameter hole in the center when they're rolled up. Okay, so that's like the opening.
Say the numbers again.
Sorry, yeah. So when they're rolled up and put on their side against the wall, basically they're 6 feet tall. And they have a 14-inch hole in the middle where like it's been rolled up. And like I said, they're usually usually horizontal. Now they've been put up vertical to like clean up. And at this school, the school charges students to use lockers. Like you need to, which what the actual hell is that about? First of all, that seems like really.
I mean, maybe that's like, I don't understand. I've never lived that.
I can't imagine that would even be.
Why are you charging people to use the facilities
like they're children. Like they need to put their textbooks somewhere and not get stolen.
So they have to have books, but they can't just put them somewhere. They also have to pay for the books and pay for them. Okay.
That's weird, right? Okay, I'm glad.
Maybe I just don't know anything about that, but it
I've
sounds
never heard
real
of
fucking
that.
off. It sounds not...
Yeah.
It doesn't sound fair to someone who didn't have to do that.
No, exactly. And so, I mean, that being said, students would often use these mats with a 14-inch hole to hide their stuff in there.
Fair.
Right.
I would do that too.
Oh, 1,000,000%. And so, like, you would just stick, like, your gym clothes or your water bottle, whatever you
throw a goddamn
hiding.
Kit Kat in there.
Throw a Kit Kat in there. Exactly. Thank you. And so that's what they would use them for. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I would definitely do that.
Yeah. Why would you hide things? Like,
I hid my stuff in all sorts of weird places, and I didn't have to pay for a locker. I was just lazy. Like, that was literally the end of it. So anyway, the mats are up, and one of the students is kind of on these, they're not real bleachers. They're like 2-layer bleachers, like just really dinky. Like you can pick them up. They're like metal bleachers, but they're only 2 levels. And one of the students is kind of standing up, and she looks over at the mats, and she notices that one of them has something white sticking out of it.
Okay.
And she leans over to look, and it's a sock. And the sock is attached to a foot.
and the foot is attached to a body?
Correct.
Okay. And the
It's
body's
not a
dead.
disembodied foot, which I know you also don't like.
I mean, no matter what, I don't like that there's a person alive or dead hiding in that thing.
Yes. So there's a person inside the mat. They call for the teacher, and one of the students calls 911 while the other student and the teacher push. So it's in the back of these mats. They push the other mats out of the way, pull that one down, and they find the body of Kendrick inside this mat.
Wow. Okay.
So
very intentionally hidden.
He's in there. Yeah. You couldn't see him from just standing on the floor of the mat.
So not knowing anymore, and this is like nothing against your research skills, but my perception as a listener right now is that it sounds like a homicide.
Right.
Because there was clearly an intent to hide this dead body.
Right.
Of sticking it all the way in the back and then covering it up with more mats.
Right.
Okay.
So that's right. So that it's one of these weird cases where on the surface you're like, well, obviously this is a homicide, and then when you get way more into the details, you're like, there's like doubts that kind of
Really?
pop
Okay.
up. Yeah. So they pull it down. They reveal the body of Kendrick. His arm is outstretched inside the mat, and there's a pool of blood drying on the floor beneath where the mat was.
Where was the blood coming from?
I will tell you.
Okay.
It's not great, but I'll tell you.
No area is good.
No area is good.
There are other places that are specifically
It's not
harmful.
leeches on your forehead.
Okay, I
It's
see.
much worse than that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the teacher starts to pull Kendrick out of the mat, but he's like, no, this student is dead. I'm going to stop touching it and call 911.
Right. I don't want to touch a dead
Yeah, it's like nothing you can do. He was like going to save him, but then he's like, this is just too late. So the school is placed on lockdown, and on January 11th, 2013, Kendrick Johnson is pronounced dead. Now, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Kendrick. He was born October 10th, 1995 to Kenneth and Jackie. He was always described as kind of a quiet and well-mannered kid when he met new people, but he was like a jokester among his friends and family. He was really talented athletically and academically. Apparently, he really loved math, which I was like,
Jesus.
who loves math? But okay, good
that's
for you.
Immediately an upstanding character.
I like see gold stars.
I know.
Like, oh my God. He played for the Lowndes County High School football and basketball teams. And his friend Mark said that after high school, Kendrick wanted to go to college and play professional football. And this actually wasn't even a far reach. Like, it might sound like a pipe dream to some people, but he was extremely talented. And Valdosta is actually the hometown of at least 15 NFL players over the last 30 years. So something's in the water at this place.
Holy crap.
Besides, a racist supervisor, but something else is going on.
Just get you into football and
the athletic prowess.
Please just avoid all the horrible things going on around you.
Yeah. So, Lowndes County High School's program is considered among the top in the country. So it was actually, a legitimate goal for him to have. Sure. So the old gym was taped up as a crime scene, obviously, to secure any evidence. I will say, so according to the sheriff, whose name will come up a few times, his name is Chris Prine. According to him, any location of a deceased individual with no apparent medical condition is deemed a crime scene, essentially. Okay. So if you find a body, we don't know what happened, automatically, this is a crime scene.
Fair.
Which is fair, totally. Unfortunately, was not necessarily treated quite as much as it should be as a crime scene. Why would it though? Really?
Why would it?
Why would it though? Really, in this day and age. And then the sheriff also stated that it did appear that there had been evidence, moved around and whatever, but most of that was done when the students discovered Kendrick, pulled him down, not knowing yet, this is a crime scene.
Sure.
They had already obviously...
They messed with things not knowing what they were doing.
Trying to help, so that was cordoned off. So here's kind of, again, the mat is 6 feet. Kendrick was 5'11". He was positioned head first down the center of the rolled up vertical tumbling mat.
Head first. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And his one arm was like this, reaching, and the other one was up by his side.
Okay.
And he had headphones wrapped around his hand. There's a okay, it just starts to get so wacky and weird. There's a pair of sneakers. I'm actually going to show you. You guys can Google these pictures. I don't want to put some of these photos on the video because they're extremely graphic, some of them, and I don't want anyone to accidentally watch this or have a kid watch this. I will say too, this is important, the family themselves released these photos, so they're comfortable with people viewing them.
They probably want people to see what happened to their kid, right?
Exactly. Okay. And so, if you want to Google it, it is pretty gruesome, some of it, but it definitely gives you a better idea of what happened. So, I guess first I'll just show you a picture of Kendrick. The printer, I think, was a little wonky.
A handsome looking dude.
He was a very handsome looking dude. And
Wait, so he's handsome, an athlete, and likes math? Goodbye.
I know. Okay. I know. And so that's him. Shit, I'm trying to find. Okay, so it's hard to see, but his body was found in the mat. See?
I see.
And his feet are sticking out. So that's what the sock is what the girl had seen. And now, do you see these sneakers?
Yeah, random
There's a pair of
shoes
sneakers kind of wedged next to his legs.
covered in blood.
No, that's just the color of the shoe.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's no blood here. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no blood there. But so
he's wearing shoes.
When you look in, you just see his feet with socks. One of the socks is partially off, and a pair of sneakers kind of wedged next to his legs.
And they're not his, or they are his?
I don't know. I think they are his. Okay, so here's the thing.
Because I would think it sounds like if this were a murder, someone wrapped him up and then realized you could still see his shoes, and so they just took them off and shoved them in there.
It looks like someone tossed the shoes in after him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely the first thought that people had. My question about this is if he was wedged in this mat and his feet were kind of sticking out and he was trying to get out, I can see being able to kick your own shoes off.
His shoes getting taken off, yeah.
And his sock was halfway off. I can see how that
maybe
could
he
happen.
was struggling to climb out of.
Right.
Yes.
Being stuck. So that's my personal view of it.
It looks like it could be either, honestly.
Yeah. And so that's why this whole case is
okay, well, sign one that there's a little confusion.
Yeah. It just gets more and more confusing. And so to clarify, I don't know if this is even clear yet. Basically, the theory is that Kendrick was going to get his shoes that he had in this mat and had reached and had gotten stuck in the mat. You know how I was saying students hide stuff in the mat to keep them.
Yes.
And the mats are usually horizontal.
And he kind of dove on. Oh.
And now they're vertical.
I see.
And I'll give more detail on that, but that's essentially where the confusion lies of was this a freak accident or was this someone really put the body there?
It really could have been just a freak accident.
Right.
It also really could have been a murder.
Yes,
but
exactly.
I see. It's really confusing. Such a drastic difference of situations.
And the fact that the case was mishandled makes it so much more of a conspiracy, quote unquote, or at least makes it more of a viable option to a lot of people because it's things didn't get handled right. So,
right.
So again, he's kind of turned like this with his arm out. Now this is a graphic photo.
Which I'm lucky enough to see.
Would you like to see it?
Sure.
Okay. It's pretty gruesome. It's of his face, and
what was wrong with the face?
Is very bloated and disfigured
because he was upside down and blood was pooling.
Yes.
So just
it's really graphic, and also the printer, the color made it really wild. But there's at the bottom here.
Wow, it doesn't even look like a face.
No, it's really, and seeing him like there's his mouth. It's hard to see, but like
you know, all I think of is the poor parents.
Yes, exactly. And like from the beginning, they were in such a bad position because she's in the, you know, student teacher lounge or teacher lounge or whatever, and she hears someone say there's a body in the gym. Like that's how she finds out her son is dead, you know, like. And
then to go check, like it's pretty unrecognizable.
Yes. Yeah, they literally said it looked nothing like him.
I can confirm.
And this was a day after he had been last seen. So it's
if you're upside down that whole time, I mean, like think about being upside down for 5 seconds.
Exactly. And so that's
okay.
There's more like sciencey explanation later, but just to give you an idea of like what they found when they pulled his body out, that's what it was. Now this is strange too. So there was a sneaker found. So he has the sneakers wedged behind his legs. There's also a sneaker found kind of underneath where the mat was on the floor on top of a pool of blood.
What?
There's a sneaker on top of a pool of blood, like presumably the one he was reaching for. But there's no blood on the sneaker. So it's like on top of the blood.
Right.
But there's no...
That makes me think again that it's a murder.
Yeah, but then...
God damn it.
But then part of me is like, well, how would that even happen in a murder? Like...
I guess I imagine that like there was... I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
Because then I'm like, but then who would say... It's just such a weird, strange thing. And I mean, I guess...
Like, it feels like the shoes were a secondary situation aside from it. So it feels like he died and then the shoes kind of got tossed in there.
Yeah. Well, these shoes were the ones that were like underneath where he was reaching for. The pair of shoes above him were... There were 2 pairs of shoes, to be clear.
Oh, my God.
Which, again, is confusing because it's like, well, if he was wearing shoes and then he was...
Why are there other random shoes?
But it's for his gym class. Maybe, like, he needed a certain pair of shoes for gym versus basketball versus football. Who knows? It's just there's so many questions that weren't answered or weren't, like, properly looked
investigated?
At. Yeah, right away. Okay, sorry. I know I'm all over the place.
No.
So there's no blood on the sneaker, and in addition to the sneaker in a pool of blood on the floor of the gym, blood is also discovered on a sweatshirt, a sneaker, and...
Another sneaker? A third shoe?
Okay, I'll just preface this right now. One of the sneakers they thought had blood turned out to be paint. So that the sneaker with blood was kind of a
red herring.
Red herring, correct. Literally.
Okay.
But there was blood on the wall of the gym and in a trash can on some tissues in the bathroom. So he had a sweatshirt there as well that seemed to have some blood on it. But instead of taking that into evidence, they just like gave that back to his family. They were like, here's a sweatshirt, by the way. And I'm like, that could have been such important evidence. There's blood on that. Like, what are you doing?
It sounds like that John Mulaney bit of like cops before DNA.
The old-timey.
They're like, there's a pool of blood over there. Gross. Mop it up.
Mop it up.
Back to my hunch.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like there's literally a sweatshirt in this crime scene that they were so intent on naming a crime scene, and then they just like hand the hoodie back to his family and are like, here you go. And they give the shoes.
Did the parents ever try to give it back and be like, can you investigate it?
Well, at that point, it's already been, contaminated. So they never collect it, never test it. They do test the blood on the wall, and it is not Kendrick's DNA.
Interesting.
However, they never test it against anyone else.
What?
So it could very well...
It's so stupid.
Yeah, so it could be an assailant or like someone who he fought with, who knows? But they never test it. They're just like, oh, well, it's not Kendrick's anyway. But the blood in the bathroom trash can, it turns out a girl had been at color guard practice and had gotten hit in the nose and had a nosebleed. So that was pretty much explained, the tissues in the bathroom.
Okay, but not the wall.
Not the wall, but part of me, the people who did look at the blood on the wall, it was like a smear or something. And like, it's just kind of an old decrepit gym and like,
right.
Who knows? I mean, it could just be they thought it was just like an old stain left there from, which obviously is
stain?
Foul, but like, it's a gym. It's a high school gym. I'm like, I don't know how clean that place is.
I don't know.
If it was behind those mats, like who knows if anyone's cleaned back there. So I don't necessarily think that like it even necessarily...
But they still should have looked into it.
We shouldn't be saying it may not have anything. We should be saying like, oh no, this was verified as so-and-so's blood and was not involved. Like we should be that sure, and we're not. So again, they did test the blood in the bathroom, and it did come from a female, so they were able to kind of rule out that was his also. Now, against protocol, again, which states that the county coroner must be summoned immediately in cases of sudden violent or unexplained death. Lowndes County Coroner Bill Watson was not notified until 6 hours after the body was discovered, which...
Why?
Bad. So bad. So that was not good. A friend of Kendrick's who in the paper... And we also have to remember, these kids are all minors, so that makes it so much more complicated. You can't just, like, test people's blood or, like... look at, release video footage because they're children. So it's like it adds a whole layer of complication to this whole thing. But so, oh my God, I want to make sure my photo isn't just like in the camera. A friend of Kendrick's who's labeled Student C in the case files tells investigators that he and Kendrick shared basketball shoes and that they stored them in the mat to avoid locker fees.
So that could be the second pair of shoes?
So that is believed to be the shoes that he was trying to get to.
Believed? Couldn't they just ask the guy, like, are these your shoes?
No, they were. He said these were mine and Kendrick's shoes.
Okay.
And so presumably that's kind of what was...
Gotcha.
If this was a freak accident, he was trying to reach the shoes that were a couple feet or whatever down into this mat that was usually horizontal and was now vertical.
Right.
And so another student corroborated this, like, yes, Kendrick and this other student share those shoes, and those are his basketball shoes. So that would explain why he was getting a different pair of shoes from inside the mat. On January 14, 2013, before even getting the official coroner's report and weeks before any DNA results came back, Sheriff Prine concluded that Kendrick's death had been accidental. So pretty much immediately, he was like, this was an accident. And that kind of set the tone for the whole thing because it was like there's so much unanswered. They didn't even get the coroner's report back.
They didn't even try.
They didn't even have DNA yet. So like it just was like jumping the gun so quickly to say it was an accident. So that's part of the problem too. And their theory is that prior to Christmas break, students were asked to roll up the mats, put them in the corner with the others. His shoes were in there. This pushed the mat with Kendrick's and Student C's sneakers to the back where the other mats were now in front of it. Unable to tilt the mat and get the sneakers.
He thought he could just climb up and grab it.
He climbed on top, tried to reach down, and slipped into the mat, causing him to asphyxiate. And causing him to asphyxiate. Now, a lot of people at this point say, well, that's impossible because there's many reasons people say it's impossible, which is A, I've heard people say, who is stupid enough to do that? Again, he couldn't get the mat down. A lot of people say, why wouldn't you just knock it down? There were a ton of mats. It was in the back.
I mean, it makes sense to me. It sounds, especially as a teenager, like,
you're like, I can reach it.
Yeah.
And you're like, whatever, I don't need to get help. I can reach it.
It's like when you're a teenager and like, yeah, you could probably scoot past people in the movie theater, or can you climb over the chair?
Yes.
It's like
climbing over chairs, or like even
it's
saying,
like, why not?
Just saying like, I could probably walk down the stairs, but I'm going to jump from this ledge to the other one just to see.
It's just another thing like that.
And so it's really...
I would have done it. Like if
Me too. Like, and that's why every time I listen to these shows and people were like, who would do that? I'm like, I
would.
For sure would have done that. I
absolutely would.
I would have done that for sure.
I probably have.
I've probably have done something equally stupid.
I mean, how many times have you like dropped your phone charger behind your couch and instead of moving the fucking couch, you like throw your goddamn
I start like climbing down it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if he and again, people say, why didn't he knock it over? Because these mats are heavy. They're like those wrestling mats.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just tip it over. It's like you need to hoist it down.
He really didn't have really much of a choice.
No.
Unless he had someone there to help him move all these. And it would take him forever and then put them all back.
Exactly. And
like, just climb in.
It was in the back, like behind a bunch of others. So he would have had to take them all down.
And he's an athlete. He probably thought I'm strong enough to pull myself out.
Yes, exactly.
If something happens.
And he probably would have been. And then some people say, well, the opening's 14 inches. His shoulders are, I think, either 16 or 17.
Yeah, he sounds like a broad dude.
Yes, and he was. But again, if you put one arm and you reach down, you can angle yourself to fit in a smaller space. So that would explain that. And I know a lot of people probably are not happy with me countering these, but this is just where it gets complicated.
I mean, that's a valid. If I didn't know that the other option was there was like a homicide, that story is easily explained away.
Like you can explain it away. Exactly.
And also like given the town that you know, the way you described it earlier, it sounds like it sounds like it's a town where people probably didn't really want to investigate something like that and could have easily just come up with that story to cause an accident.
Yeah, and I think that became part of the huge conspiracy. Exactly.
That they just explained it away because they didn't want to investigate.
Quickly. Yeah, and it wasn't thoroughly looked at, which even if it was an accident, it deserves to be explained. Like the parents deserve to understand what the hell happened.
Yeah, even if it's an accident, they deserve to know what kind of accident.
And to be sure that it's an accident.
Right.
Like, if you're saying it's an accident, like, prove that it's an accident.
But I do understand that argument.
The, like, back and forth of it.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand a little bit of, like, well, you know, I would have done something dumb like that. And so what would have happened is he would have put his arm down to grab the sneaker, like, either gone too far and, like, tipped in or somehow wedged himself in. But the problem was he would have blocked off oxygen because he's so broad, you know, and
Right.
he would have, if he got stuck like that
Yeah.
and slid or something, you know, he would have gotten stuck, and he did asphyxiate, you know, if no oxygen in there.
Right. And also, you're so broad, you're blocking any other oxygen coming in.
Yes, you're just kind of blocking it. And then a lot of people say, well, why didn't he scream for help? Picture being in the back of all of these mats.
In an empty gym. Like, no
and
one's going to hear you.
people came like 15 minutes later, but even like, maybe he had already asphyxiated by then. B, if you're in this mat, surrounded by other mats, these are like thick ass mats.
Also, let's like argue that like if you're down inside in the back of really thick ass mats, like that's soundproof. Like,
well, yeah, you don't even know if other people are there.
Yeah.
And like the opening's 14 inches, but like the whole mat is much bigger, and there's a ton of them. And if you don't have oxygen, how are you even screaming to get help? So like,
and if you're choking,
I
like,
just right. And I just feel like a little bit, you know, it's, to me, I'm like, it does make sense. And like, people say, why wouldn't he have done? I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did try to scream if this was an accident.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would have.
We're talking a lot about this side of the argument.
Yeah.
But we don't, that doesn't mean that we necessarily agree that this is definitely what happened. It's just, this is one side of an argument that does have some good points.
I think it's a valid side to the case. And I mean, you'll see later where other people stand. But I guess I've just been a little frustrated listening to some versions where I'm like, but it really is possible. I really think it's possible. And I think it's not
only
impossible.
Possible because I remember how stupid I was
exactly.
as a teenager. And
Thank
like, not
you.
to say that he's like stupid for doing this, but like just making like random choices of like, oh, I'm going to stick my hand down there.
Yes.
You know,
like I can reach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So no, okay. I'm glad that you understand where I'm a little bit like,
no, we don't want to offend anybody or anybody's opinion. We're just trying to give
really not
side to the story ample time.
And both sides have very, very strong, very strong supporters and proponents. So I know either way, you know, people are going to be on their side or who knows. But I'm just trying to see all points. So even if he tried to wiggle the mat horizontal, the position of all the other mats would have prevented it from tipping over.
Right. It's stuck in there.
It's stuck there. The padding would have muffled his cries for help. So I showed you the facial disfigurement and swelling.
Yeah.
So there was blood and vomit also. And what would have happened is that the position of the body, like you said, was upside down. And if you're hung upside down that long, blood begins to come out of your orifices. So eyes, nose, mouth. And the fluids would have pooled in his head and then eventually leaked, which is such a bad word. You know, we said skin slippage, which again happens in this too later.
Oh, yikes.
It happens right now.
Okay.
So part of the disfigurement of his face was actually due to the autopsy, because when they cut your scalp, it kind of moves where your skin is.
Right.
And Elena, who's an autopsy tech, explained that in the Morbid episode where she was like, you know, that's just how that's just probably why that would have happened. Like part of the, I don't want to like misquote her just in case, but that's part of the reason that his face looked like that.
Because they cut his head open? Is that
I think the scalp gets cut and it like skin
peel
slippage like makes I know it's a terrible word.
Sorry,
it's not fun. But also a huge part of the facial swelling is because he was upside down. If that makes sense.
That's all I needed.
Bleeding, you know. So anyway,
it's all bad.
It's all so bad.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around like every horrible ankle.
I know. And this is like all I've thought about for 4 days straight now. So I'm like,
no wonder you like made
glad to get it off
like,
my chest.
You've made decisions like fly across country and hide in boxes. You're like, this is all I'm capable of.
I'm just gonna go in this box for a few hours. The following day, the forensic pathologist from Valdosta Lowndes Regional Crime Lab turns over their report to the sheriff. And again, the sheriff had already made the conclusion that this was an accident. Now the coroner's like, or the forensic pathologist is like, okay, here's my report. And it does support the sheriff's conclusion that Kendrick died from something called positional asphyxia, and that there were no signs of trauma to the body. So positional asphyxia is kind of like this weird coverall term. It's very rare. It just basically means like you asphyxiate from, I guess,
a position.
Yes, literally.
Okay.
Yeah.
That checks out with positional.
Yeah,
asphyxia.
I think it's like if your head is turned a certain way and you block oxygen,
Sure.
or you're upside down, I guess. So at this point, Jackie and Kenneth, KJ's parents, believe their son was murdered. I mean, I don't blame them. After all of this, there's like barely, within a day, they're like...
I mean, like, we just took a lot of time to like explain that, like, the valid points of that argument, but there's still a lot of holes to that argument.
And picture not even like being told like, oh, he was found in this mat anyway, it was an accident. Here's his hoodie. It's like,
yeah, like when you have questions.
Yeah, it's like
also,
so dismissed.
Whose blood is on the goddamn wall?
Yeah,
like,
well, that too, exactly. So anyway, they believe their son was murdered. Their suspicions began prior, like, to the actual investigation because, Kendrick was black. Everyone investigating was white, and obviously that doesn't inherently mean anything, but to his parents, they were like, is this why now when the case starts to be dismissed a little bit,
right,
they're like, well, that probably has something to do with it. And so on January 16, 2013, a vigil is held at a park in Valdosta, and a civil rights organization called the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or the SCLC, and the NAACP step up to help the family, and they launched their own investigation.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So they're like, you know,
That's
what,
awesome.
we'll support you. We're going to look into this on our own with our resources.
Oof.
So that's great. The family gets an attorney who suggests that, had Kendrick been white, the case may have been handled differently. I'm on board with that theory. I think if this were like, now I'm just quoting all these different podcasters, but Karen from My Favorite Murder said, like, if this were, a blonde cheerleader who was found upside down, or what have you, we could probably sense that this may have been a little more looked into than
1,000%.
Kendrick. So in any case, they also request the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, or that the FBI take over the case. And at a rally in April to demand justice for Kendrick, Jackie and Kenneth block the entrance to the Lowndes County Courthouse, and they are arrested and found guilty of a misdemeanor. So this is just like they're already in this like battle with law enforcement. They are holding a rally and they're arrested, which now this is ringing very similar to things going on today. And then in mid-April, this is interesting, the coroner, whose name is Bill Watson, he steps out and he's like, hey, I have some misgivings about like how this was handled.
Ooh.
And he says, according to CNN, he slammed the handling of the case by the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department. And his issues included waiting 6 hours to notify him, which, yeah, that's no good.
I mean, when the coroner himself is like, what's going on?
Yeah, the coroner's like, why didn't you tell me sooner? Like, right.
What were you doing for 6 hours?
Yeah.
Not investigating?
Not telling me, yeah. Moving the body prior to the coroner's arrival, that was his other issue. And then finally, evidence was tainted when Kendrick's dad was there, Kenneth, and they unzipped the body bag to show Kenneth his son, like before he was even taken from the scene. Which I'm like, what
when
are
he
you
looked
doing?
like that picture, too. Like,
and that's actually where the picture comes from. Kenneth like has that photo from. Ugh. So,
oh my God.
In any case, he was like, this was all wrong. And obviously you can't just unzip a body bag before taking it away. You're tainting evidence. There's more people around. You can't do that. You just got to take it, preserve it, bring it to the coroner, let him handle it. He was not happy with the way things were handled. On May 2nd, after the official ruling of accidental death and the closure of Kendrick's case, a march was held in front of the high school. And the official ruling, even though Bill Watson said he had doubts, his conclusion that this was positional asphyxiation was included in the final ruling. And at the request of KJ's parents, the Johnsons, the official report was finally released in mid-May of 2013. And despite contradictions between the paramedics report and the crime scene reports that have now been released, and there's like iffiness on like there's just contradictions, the school wouldn't release their surveillance video because they're like, well, there's surveillance cameras in the gym, we want them. Now obviously that sounds very sketchy, but again, these are minors, like these are children, and so the school probably is in a weird position of like, we can't just give away publicly these videos of our students. Like, I think that there's partially that reason to blame as well for why they were hesitant to give up the video footage.
Okay.
However, the video footage becomes a huge controversy.
The thing on Twitter.
Yeah, probably. Okay.
Is it a person in a white shirt and a person in a yellow shirt?
Oh, no, it's just it's just Kendrick.
Oh, maybe I never saw it.
What if you were just watching a basketball game?
I really was just watching, like, wow, ESPN's got some crazy conspiracies going on right now.
30 for 30. Okay. Let me just... Okay, what am I going to say now? Okay, what am I going to say now? That's the constant in my brain the last couple days.
Literally everyone's constant when they listen to this podcast.
What are they going to say now?
What roller coaster ride are we on today?
Hey, big secret, we have no idea. We don't even know.
It's just going to come out. It's the Michael Scott thing where he's like, sometimes I just talk and I find the end of the sentence on the way.
Exactly. So... at this point, the Johnsons retain the services of a noted civil rights attorney named Benjamin Crump, and they release the photo of Kendrick's face to the public in an effort to be like, pay attention to this case. Sure. It's not getting enough
Definitely
attention.
Jarring.
It is, and it worked. The public was outraged. There was a little bit of confusion because the photo looks like he's been beaten, and so people assumed like this child was beaten, right. And it's being dismissed because of his race. However, even the Johnson said, like, yeah, we know that his face wasn't swollen from the beatings. This is
right.
like from the scenario that he was in.
Hours or whatever.
Exactly. So the public is outraged, rightfully so. And on June 6, 2013, a judge granted the Johnsons permission to exhume Kendrick's body for examination by an independent pathologist. So they were like, we want to look at this again from a new angle. So this guy named Dr. William Anderson is hired to perform the second autopsy. And on September 3rd, the Johnsons, through their attorney, released the results of the autopsy. Anderson had concluded that Kendrick had died of unexplained, apparent, non-accidental blunt force trauma to the neck.
What?
He had found a 1-inch bruise on Kendrick's neck as well as some soft tissue damage. And so this is just like upside down, like turn the case upside down. This new guy is saying like, no, it was not asphyxiation. He was...
So this is an ignorant question because, and I don't think you can answer it either because neither of us are pathologists. Well, because neither of us are pathologists. Yeah. But like, how does a bruise last that long? How long had he been buried?
Like 9 months.
Yeah. Not that like, I guess when your body's dead, it's not healing itself anymore. But like, does a bruise from the last day you're around stick around that long?
I imagine it would if the skin were damaged and the blood vessels were damaged, maybe, and it can't repair. Yeah.
I guess so. It blows my mind that you should see a scratch from like 3 years ago and it's like, oh, it's still there.
No, that's a really good question. And there was soft tissue damage, so that maybe was a signal too.
Maybe.
But yeah,
I don't know. I'm not trying to
I didn't think about that. I wonder if it's like your blood vessels can't repair.
We'll ask Blaze later.
Yeah, Blaze like, I don't fucking know. I'm not a pathologist. So in any case, they're like, holy shit. So the Johnson family demands a homicide investigation based on the second autopsy. And the family and their attorneys assert now that Kendrick was beaten to death in another location by a classmate and his brother. And they call out by name these two boys named Brian and Brendan Bell.
Oh my God.
And they say Brian and Brendan beat Kendrick, murdered him, and then put his body in the mat after his death. So
holy shit.
The complicating factor among all the other complicating factors is that Brian and Brendan's dad was an FBI agent.
Oh my God.
With the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department.
Oh no.
So now they're saying,
it was a cover-up.
It was a cover-up.
Yeah.
And they literally are saying Rick Bell, this FBI agent, this dad, was trying to cover up his son's murder.
So now it's this racially charged...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see.
Exactly. And that he's trying to cover up his own son's crime.
True.
So the Johnsons believe, and this is what they allege, that Brian, one of the boys, and Kendrick had a recent fight on the bus, and that Brian and Brendan were so angry they wanted revenge and therefore beat him. Now, according to other students, there had been a fight between Brian and Kendrick, It was on the bus, and like they said, and it was basically, it stemmed from Yo Mama jokes.
Oh my God.
So I guess they were saying Yo Mama jokes, and it got a little out of hand, and they got into like kind of a mini fight. But it turns out that hadn't happened. That was 18 months before.
Okay,
and
so
they were.
It was not
Like a recent thing that happened, right? So that kind of was conveniently left out of like this assertion that like they had had a fight and he was angry because that had happened 18 months before. But they had allegedly, according to a lot of witnesses, remained friends, were very much over it. They had voluntarily paired up for a science project recently. Like, it didn't seem like this was a long-lasting fight that like had, you know, impacted their friendship day to day. However, Kendrick's parents are like, no, they weren't friends. But then Brian and Brendan were like, of course we were friends. So it's a, he said,
it's very hearsay. Yeah.
So it's unclear. I mean, a lot of people said like, of course they were pals, but who knows? You know, I mean, the Johnsons say they didn't know about these boys and they weren't friends with their son.
So they weren't like best friends, but they could have been like good acquaintances at school, or they could have been
or
enemies.
Not. Yeah, it's like so unclear because everyone has a different.
So they knew each other. That's what we know.
They did know each other. Everyone can agree.
They knew
on
each
the
other
fact.
and had kind of a fight a year and a half before this happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So on October 10th, a judge finally orders the release of the school's surveillance tapes.
Okay.
So that same day, the Johnson family and their attorneys reveal that the second autopsy also discovered that Kendrick's organs were missing from his body.
Shut the fuck up.
And had been replaced.
Is this a joke or is this real?
Newspaper.
What?
It's just like, it doesn't.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not. That's not funny. I'm just like truly in shock.
It's just going so.
What are you talking about?
Okay.
That is a totally different. That's a totally different crime. Someone harvested his organs. And no one noticed. What's going on?
Well, no one noticed, so there's that. But no, so essentially the funeral home had, okay, rewind.
Help me.
Help me.
Going on?
So,
oh my God.
Apparently it is an old, okay, currently if you remove organs for embalming, you fill the body typically with cotton.
Oh.
Or sawdust.
Okay.
However, in like the 70s, potentially even later, oftentimes newspaper was used to retain the shape of the body because you're taking all these organs out and you collapse in on yourself, basically. So they use newspaper. This is definitely an outdated practice. It's definitely not illegal, so it's like perfectly legal. And people are like, well, why would they use this outdated practice? One of my thoughts, which I've heard on other shows too, is that this funeral home had offered free services to the family. They were like, you know what, we want to do this for free. Maybe they were kind of cutting corners or like doing it not as modern and whatever as some places would do it the old school way. However, so that part got explained a little bit.
I literally just thought there was like a whole fucking.
But where are the organs?
Okay, I thought you were going to.
That's still an issue.
Okay, so I'm still kind of right here.
You are
I'm like
100% right.
Where did they go?
Because first of all, his family is like, hold on, this is like.
Also, when did this happen? Was this like?
That was at the second autopsy when he was taken out of the ground, like 9 months later.
But in the first autopsy, he had all of his organs?
So...
Or do we think it happened and then, like, they took his organs and they put them in the mat?
There's a lot of talk about, well, they signed off... The funeral home signed off that they received the body with organs.
There is. There's
a signature that they signed off to say, we got the body with the organs in it.
Is there an argument that could have been forged?
So there's an argument that either
there's an argument
wrong or whatever, but what happened?
Oh my God.
I know. And so the funeral home
they got misplaced at some point.
They got misplaced.
Okay. Or straight up stolen.
They said every organ from pelvis to skull was missing.
Pelvis to skull?
I think they mean the organs between the pelvis and the skull. Every organ in between was missing.
Right, but like your brain, heart, lungs, intestines, and...
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The funeral home said now they never received them. The GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, whose crime lab conducted the first autopsy, assert they sent the organs. They later relent and admit that the organs were deemed too decomposed through natural process and the pathologist Bill Watson had discarded them.…. So now there's...
Is that legal?
It's... So... I don't think it's, I don't know if it's
I don't expect you to
illegal.
know that.
I don't know if it's illegal. I think it's very immoral, or I don't know the right word.
Like, wouldn't you want to ask the parents
exactly.
or something
It's not
first?
fair to the family to not say, by the way, your son's missing his organs and we didn't tell you.
And also, like, he's completely deflated without newspaper.
And he's stuffed with newspaper. Like, it's just like...
This body just sounds like his body just sounds like it was so disrespected in so many fucking
and
ways.
his family just keeps getting, like, re-traumatized. Like, whether, again... in the end, like, whether this was an accident or a murder, like, this family is going through hell and back,
right.
you know? Like, it's just really traumatic. So they said, Kenneth, his dad, said, when we buried Kendrick, we thought we were burying Kendrick, not half of Kendrick. So, like, they were completely blown away by this news that, like, he's missing his organs. And at first, there's this back and forth of, like, well, who has them? And then then the first guy, Bill, who ruled it asphyxiation, was like, oh yeah, I discarded them. So, you know, it's just another thing that's like, what? You know, and it could be just kind of a freak thing as part of the case, but these all add up to, like, this whole case is just a mess. Yeah. On October 31st, 2013, U.S. Attorney Michael Moore announced that there would be a federal investigation into Kendrick Johnson's death. And the Johnson's attorney requested a coroner's inquest to reclassify Kendrick's cause of death from accidental to homicide based on the second autopsy. So they're like, let's relook into this. Relook, that's not a word. Let's, like, reinvestigate this and change it to a homicide. I also want to note, I meant to say this earlier, but I do want to note that the Bell brothers, Brendan and Brian, and their father have not ever been accused of a crime by law enforcement or prosecuted. Just so I'm,
it's just coincidental that.
Well, no. So the family is saying, like, they did it, but I want to be clear that, like, no law enforcement has said this. They're not arrested.
It's just their theory on what happened.
So the Johnsons are saying this. I'm not saying this, and I'm not saying that they were ever indicted for this or even tried for this.
Gotcha.
I don't want to be sued for slander. A lot of people get sued in this story. They have been accused of this crime by the Johnson family in multiple filings of the same lawsuit since 2015, and they ended up suing a lot of publications for defamation, and they countersued the Johnson family for, like, the legal fees they had to pay and damages. It's just, like, a lot of back and forth legal stuff. So I want to give a disclaimer that the Johnsons are the only ones, like, who've officially accused them of this crime. So this request to reinstate this as a homicide is denied. The governor opts to wait for the report from the federal investigation to make a final decision. The investigators, so this is where I was, like, surprised a little bit. So the SCLC, which is that civil rights organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, who had stepped up with the NAACP to, like, do their own investigation.
Right.
So those investigators and the president of the local chapter closed their investigation and concluded that Kendrick's death was accidental and there was no cover-up.
Okay.
So this is their direct quote from the SCLC. Over 100 people would have to be lying and telling the same story for 2 years, risking the loss of their jobs, their retirement, jail time. I think the murder theory is not only false, but also ridiculous and based only on wild speculation and outright fabrications. And then they go on to say that the Johnsons and their attorneys have, quote, not been entirely truthful in their statements. So, again, these are the people that stepped up to, like, help and be on their side, and now they're
not the statement I expected.
Not at all. And so now they're totally pulling out, and they're like, listen, we don't think this was a murder. We think they're in the wrong and are going, like, way out on a limb here, accusing all these people, driving their, you know, fees into the ground, that kind of thing. So they kind of stepped totally out of the picture. And for 3 years, between November 2013 and June 2016, the FBI conducts their own investigation under 3 different U.S. attorneys. And this is like a 2.5 year to 3 year period. They investigate the Bell brothers. They investigate their parents, including the FBI agent. They conduct interviews. They have witnesses testify at grand juries. And on November 2013, the Johnson's attorney hold a press conference, and they're like, hey, these surveillance tapes we have are doctored. And CNN reports this too. They say the tapes believed to be doctored and edited with missing timestamps and disappearing students. Like, they just kind of cut out.
What?
However, and when you watch it, you can see that, like, suddenly a student's there, suddenly they're not.
Okay.
However, here's the explanation for that. So the Valdosta Daily Times did their own independent review of the surveillance tapes and say, hey, they weren't doctored. They're just really crummy systems. And essentially...
They were choppy feeds?
So not quite. I mean, that too. But essentially, standard film rates are like, 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. Or even 60 for sporting events. This camera was 1 frame per second.
Oh,
so
shit.
essentially, if you walk through in a second, you're only on there once because it just, every second is a new frame. And so it looks like people are disappearing out of the frame, but it's just such an outdated, and the entire system seems to have been really not maintained, and the timestamps were off. And so there is an hour of footage missing. That much is clear. Shit. It is not clear if this is just because the system hasn't been properly maintained or if someone intentionally doctored it. And this goes back into what the SCLC was saying of like, if this were doctored, 100 people would have to be in on this and like lying and like involved. So again, that's another one that's very controversial, this piece of evidence, because it's like, yes, the video footage is not good.
Right. I mean, it doesn't help.
No, it does not help.
It does not help.
And they're also like motion activated, so like that could explain why there's missing time. Maybe they're not recording if nobody's in the frame.
Right. Maybe it's not that I really believe it's motion censored, but it
is. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's,
okay.
It only if it says if there's a certain number of pixels of movement, then it'll start recording.
Okay. I know if like motion sensor was too high tech for like that.
It might be. I don't know.
but
yeah, exactly. So it's like, again, this is one of those things where I'm like, there's a seed of doubt, where I'm like, I don't know that it was doctored. I mean, nobody really does unless the person who doctored it knows. And only one of the 2 servers that had surveillance in the school had accurate timestamps. So the Valdosta Daily Times staff and tech cross-referenced the recordings that lacked timestamps with those that did, and actually did manage to match up the timeline. Exactly. Additionally, only one of the server's files could be opened by the family and the attorneys without like the actual software. So they only had a portion of it, which, again, I argue they should be given all of it, but whatever.
I think so too.
The newspapers, journalists, and their independent tech experts concluded that the footage had not been tampered with. Okay. So again, we have a back and forth. We have all these independent people, then we have CNN on the Johnson family side. So it's like,
I mean, talk about a headache.
It is correct. Very, very big headache. The footage also shows Brendan Bell in a classroom across campus at the time of Kendrick's death.
Okay, so at least that one is...
So he has an alibi. That's pretty solid. But if you're arguing, well, the tape is doctored, then that goes out the window.
Exactly.
So
there's no solid...
It's so frustrating.
Verifying information.
Right. And Brian, for what it's worth, also has an alibi. He was on a bus to a wrestling meet 150 miles away. He weighed in there and competed there. So he
he definitely has one.
On that trip. Yes.
What?
So
come on, Christine.
I know, Em. I know. Oh my God. Okay. So the time frame of the bus log was called into question, so the Johnsons and their attorney came forward with a log and said, look, the bus did not leave until later in the day. We have proof by this log. Turns out this log was submitted at the beginning of the season, months before, and was like an estimate or like a request for when they would leave.
So there's no rightful information on...
No, so there is.
Oh, okay.
Like the actual time and the wrestling meet itself was at 4 p.m. and that's corroborated. And even though this log says, oh no, like they left way later, that was like a request months before or a guesstimate. And so that kind of just didn't work either as like...
Okay.
It's proven that he was on this bus to this match. So yeah, that's pretty much, he does have an alibi. So January of 2014, an investigation into the funeral home concludes and finds that although, it's not the best practice and there are other alternatives, nothing the morticians really did was illegal. So like they cut corners perhaps with the newspaper, but like it wasn't illegal technically. Oof. And then the following month, the Johnsons filed a suit against the funeral home, which I don't blame them for not telling them what was going on, for not giving them real information about their own son. In March 2014, CNN announced they had gotten an emailed anonymous tip sent to police via a Georgia Open Records Act request. The tipster said they overheard classmates talking about killing Kendrick.
What?
And law enforcement investigates this tip. The tipster's found, and he admits he was lying. And he is indicted for lying to police. I found these articles. He's actually indicted for lying to police in 2015. But his mother states that her son is mentally ill and didn't really understand what he had done. And so this was a hoax, essentially.
Oh my God. Okay.
Then in July of 2014, the Johnsons sued the school district for failing to investigate this fight on the bus 18 months prior.
Uh-huh.
And the Bell family, meanwhile, so this is Brendan and Brian's family.
Yeah.
They file a $5 million defamation suit against this website called ebony.com and its publishers and crime writers for accusing their sons of murdering Kendrick. And again, they're minors.
Right.
They might be 18 at this point, but B, like, they're pretty solid alibis. So
right.
Like,
it's like, I mean, yeah, it's really, really interesting that their dad was also like probably on the original investigative team as an FBI agent. But like, also you can argue that like they have alibis and they're probably just like, leave our fucking kids alone.
Yeah. And it's with kids, it's harder. I'm like, the fact that they do have a pretty clear alibi, and like later the Johnsons like take it back. So it's like, you know, oh my goodness. So essentially they file this suit for defamation, which I think is fair if you really didn't murder anyone. Like, you can't, you know, it's hard for a person. If there's one thing I learned in journalism school, you can't just accuse someone of murder you have to say alleged, or you have to say,
right,
you know, this is my opinion, not fact, because otherwise you can be sued out the wazoo. And the Johnson family, meanwhile, they file a $100 million civil suit, a wrongful death civil suit. And they file this against a number of defendants, including Sheriff Prine and multiple members of local law enforcement, the city of Valdosta, the Bell brothers and their parents, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and several John and Jane Does that aren't mentioned by name. And then in May 2016, the Bells and many of the defendants in the Johnson suit sue the Johnsons for over $850,000 in attorney fees and $1 million in damages for defamation. Wow. So now they sued all these people. Now all these people, including the Bells, are suing them for $1 million for defamation. Crap. And finally, in June of 2016, the Department of Justice's investigation into Kendrick Johnson's death ends, and the FBI has found that there is insufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges.
Okay.
So the Johnsons refile their suit. Now they have filed 41 different suits.
Holy crap.
So this is just like, wow. I tell you, I'm covering like 6. There were like 41. So
oh my gosh. Okay. Wow.
The following month, the Johnsons were ordered to pay around $300K in attorney fees to those that sued them for defamation and attorney fees. And the Johnsons themselves admit that there was no actual evidence for their lawsuit.
They just have a hunch, or they had a hunch.
Yeah, they thought it was true, right? But they had to admit, like, okay, we understand there was no concrete evidence. In January of 2018, the Johnsons filed to exhume Kendrick's body for a third autopsy. So this is the second time they're exhuming his body.
Poor dude.
I know. It's
oh my
really,
God, just leave
really
him. Just leave him alone.
Well, his family wants another autopsy, so they have him exhumed again for the third autopsy. And in November of 2018, this autopsy confirms the second autopsy, which said non-accidental blunt force trauma to the right neck and right thorax. So this one agrees with the second one.
Okay, so out of their 3 opinions, 2 of them corroborate each other.
Yeah, are saying this was like blunt force trauma, non-accidental. Now I have half a page left, I promise. I know this is so much. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So a witness whose name has not been released, but whose name was verified by journalists on an affidavit, came forward and revealed that an unidentified individual that they knew was experiencing roid rage when they struck Kendrick in the neck with a 45-pound barbell.
Holy shit.
They also allege that Kendrick's organs were removed as part of a conspiracy to keep the actual cause of death a secret.
Oh my God.
And they say they were threatened to keep quiet, so they're unidentified, this individual. So
this is just an anonymous
another tip. Yeah, another person coming forward and saying, but again, like, you're right, it's like a tip, like, there's no proof. Like, they can't really do anything with this, you know? So that's kind of where the case was. Now, recently, there's been renewed interest in Kendrick Johnson's death, and this helped a petition to reopen the case reach 1 million signatures on June 8th of 2020.
Wow. Okay.
And obviously, this is in the midst of current demonstrations. The petition gained circulation through celebrity tweets. There were a lot of tweets about this, including Kim Kardashian. So you may have seen it on Twitter, at least scrolling past.
It's very possible.
And then on June 11th of 2020, this is very recent, a Johnson family attorney tells First Coast News that they believe the investigation was closed under suspicious circumstances fueled by pressure of retired FBI agents. So this case is now getting like a lot more traction than it has in a while. Again, I don't know what's true. I mean, most people don't know what's true, and some people have very strong opinions. I can see why. I can see why both could be the truth.
Every single one of them makes some sense.
Yeah. And like also no sense.
And also literally no sense at all.
No sense. And so this has been like really a weird one for me personally, because I've just listened to so many different opinions and read so many conflicting thoughts that like, I don't even think you would have the right sense to have an opinion after listening to everyone else's so many times. I feel like I just can't bring myself to blindly pick one or the other. Like, I feel like there's so many inconsistencies. This case was handled so poorly. And like, again, I think, this does play into the current issues because there's race involved, whether we like it or not. And the case was just not handled well. So okay, that being said, there are a lot of unanswered questions, which who knows if we'll ever get answers. The case was not handled properly, which in and of itself is tragic to me.
Yes.
The family was traumatized.
I mean, if there's one thing we can confirm in this entire story is that it was not handled well.
Yes. Big mistakes were made. And the family obviously went through hell and are still going through hell. And so whether KJ was indeed murdered or whether it was a freak accident, it's heartbreaking and tragic. And hopefully his family gets some more concrete answers soon.
I mean, that's at least wildly educational. Hopefully, I think you've covered all sides of this argument.
I really tried to find every possible bit, but then I was like, this is already like 9 pages long. I don't want to like keep adding to it.
Well, last week was my really long one. So
there we go.
Let's just both vow to never do this again.
Next week it's going to be like each of us have 1 page.
Like a paragraph, and we'll just have to sit here and look pretty.
That's easy. Just kidding.
Well, thank you for that. I didn't know about that, so I feel educated. Like, there's so many stories going on right now. It's hard to keep up.
It is, and like I know I've said this, but like I'm really trying to make a concerted effort to be more diverse with my stories that I pick. And part of me is like, this is probably going to be covered on a ton of shows now because it's becoming more relevant. But I did want to just do my own take on it. So here we are.
Well, I have no competition on people reporting the Watseka Wonder right now. So.
Oh my God, you're like the groundbreaking reporter. Should we start a Twitter campaign?
Listen, someone make a Twitter about Mary Roth's ghost inside of Rancy.
Oh my God. Bring her back to her husk.
Just a corn husk Twitter page, actually.
All right. Well, we're gonna go eat some cheesecake.
That's all I'm here for right now. Not even Christine. I'm just here for the cheesecake. I was promised she'd pay if I came here. So.
All right. Happily. All right. We deserve it.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening and watching. If you are.
And also sorry for any vibes that have been totally obliterated today.
Yeah. Oops.
But yeah, other than that, maybe go eat some cheesecake.
That's what we recommend.
Remotely with us in spirit.
And
that's
why
we
drink.
Eat cheesecake.
Cheesecake. Okay.